Hei Xinjiu was wandering around when she received a message from Enrich. After Enrich returned to the primordial chaos sect, he was given a good lecture by Mountain Master, and so he went into hiding for a few days. When he was released that day, he went to the kitchen to look for Yun Chujio, but he missed her. As soon as the two of them met, Yun Chujio complained that she was extremely bored. Enrich said, "Junior sister Xiaojio, let's go. We have a good place at Yaoguang Peak. I guarantee that you will like it." Yun Chujio immediately followed Enrich to Yaoguang Peak. As Enrich was the son of Mountain Master and of Yaoguang Peak, he was very popular among the female disciples of Yaoguang Peak. When the female disciples saw that Enrich was very attentive to Yun Chujio, they immediately looked at Yun Chujio with sharp eyes. A certain Jiu was already immune to such gazes. She was only interested in the good place Enrich mentioned. Yun Chujio followed Enrich to the back mountain of Yaoguang Peak. Yun Chujio muttered, "Senior, and you're not thinking of taking me to Jingxin Cave, are you? Junior sister Xiaojio, have you lost your mind? Jingxin Cave has already been destroyed. There's no more Jingxin Cave." Enrich pouted. Only then did Yun Chujio remember that when the Earth Dragon turned over, Jingxin Cave had already been turned into ruins. "Then where are you taking me? What else can be fun at the back of the mountain of Yaoguang Peak? Is it barbecuing meat at the back of the mountain? Or catching fish?" Yun Chujio asked as she looked around. "You'll know when you get there," Enrich said mysteriously. Seeing that he was keeping her in suspense, Yun Chujio didn't ask any more questions. The two of them arrived near a cliff. After Enrich pushed away the thick vines, a hole appeared on the cliff. Enrich said proudly, "I found this when I was young. It's been so many years. No one has found it except for me." The corner of Yun Chujio's eyes twitched. "Senior brother, and is this the dog hole you mentioned?" Enrich glared at her. "This is just an entrance. There's a world behind it. Follow me." When Yun Chujio heard that there was another world behind her, her eyes lit up immediately. She followed Enrich into the cave. After walking through the winding cave, the front suddenly opened up. A certain Jiu, who was initially very interested, really wanted to grab Enrich's neck and shout, "Are you talking about a pile of broken rocks? This should be a sinkhole." However, the hole on top was very small and there were very few people on top. Therefore, this sinkhole had never been discovered. Of course, perhaps someone had already discovered it, but there were only rocks and rocks in this sinkhole. There wasn't even a single blade of grass, so no one mentioned it. Enrich said excitedly, "Junior sister little Jiu, did you see it? This is my secret territory. Besides me, you're the first one to come in. Of course, I also wanted to ask senior brother Shangguan to come, but he thought I was talking nonsense and was really ignorant." Yun Chujio really wanted to tell him that senior brother Shangguan was really wise. It was simply a waste of time to come to this lousy place. Instead of looking at these lousy rocks here, she might as well go and get blackmailed. Just as Yun Chujio was about to ridicule him, she heard Enrich say with a slightly downcast tone, "Junior sister little Jiu, I don't know how you got here when you were young. My mother didn't come early and my father has always had high hopes for me. Since young, apart from cultivating, I've always cultivated. My childhood was simply a history of blood and tears." Yun Chujio glanced at him and then said faintly, "Bones?" Enrich almost sat down on the ground and stammered, "Junior sister Xiaojio, don't scare me. These are obviously stones, how can they be bones? How can there be bones that are as long as stones? This is because it has been too long and has been weathered into stones. If you don't believe me, look carefully, you can still see the traces of bone marrow on the bones." Yun Chujio picked up a stone for Enrich to look at carefully. Enrich took the rock that Yun Chujio handed to him and took a closer look. As expected, he found something fishy. Sometimes, the truth was just a piece of paper that could not be seen without being exposed. When he found out the truth, he felt suspicious no matter how he looked at it. Enrich picked up a few more rocks and took a look. Finally, he ran to observe the few big rocks. Then he was horrified to find that they were all really bones. Enrich asked with a trembling voice, "Junior sister Xiaojio, do you think these bones belong to humans or beasts?" Yun Chujio held the rolling pin and pulled for a while, then said, "I really can't tell, but those big bones definitely don't belong to humans. Junior sister Xiaojio, why do you think there are so many bones here? Let's hurry up and report it to the sect leader." And Lin Chuan felt a chill run down his spine when he recalled that the person he had confided to in his childhood was actually a pile of bones. It's not too late to report this later. Let's look around first. What if there is some treasure buried here? A certain Jiu was not even afraid of the Yama Palace. These bones were a piece of cake. Besides, if these bones were in danger and Lin Chuan, this idiot, would not be alive and kicking until now. Junior sister Xiaojiu, it's not that I want to say this, but you are such a money grubber. These are all bones, how could there be any treasures? Although Lin Chuan said so, he was already used to listening to Yun Chujia's arrangements. Thus he could only take out his sword and start to pull the small bones on the ground. The two of them pulled for a long time, but they didn't find any so-called treasures. Yun Chujio touched her chin and looked at the few large bones. Suddenly, a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. She instructed Lin Chuan to move the few large bones together. The gaps were actually tightly sewn together. After the two of them put the large bones together, they were surprised to find that these large bones were actually a skull. To be exact, it was the skull of a fish. This is actually the skull of a fish? Those small bones must be the bones of a fish. No wonder they are all small bones. But why would such a big fish's bones appear in the inner land of our primordial chaos sect? And Lin Chuan was extremely surprised. Yun Chujio rubbed her chin and thought for a while. This is nothing strange. The world has changed. The primordial chaos sect is now the inner land. Perhaps tens of thousands of years ago, it was the sea. Besides, what is the name of the city next to the primordial chaos sect? Ninghai City? Ninghai City. Yes, isn't Ninghai meant to pray for the peace of the sea? Could it be that this place was really the sea in the past? And Lin Chuan felt that his brain was not enough. Maybe. Since we have nothing to do, let's try and see if we can piece together a complete skeleton. Yun Chujio was also bored. As she spoke, she actually started to look for slightly larger bones and started to piece them together. And Lin Chuan was also a nonsensical person. He actually thought that this suggestion was not bad. If they could really make a skeleton, this could be considered as an explanation for his lost childhood. The two were bored to death. After fighting for a few days, they finally managed to make a rough outline. After all, there were some small bones that could not be determined. This was the skeleton of a giant fish that was about 500 feet long, and there were many sharp teeth bones. Could be deduced that this was a very powerful sea beast. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. Yun Chujio and Lin Chuan looked at the skeleton of the big fish and felt a sense of accomplishment. Junior sister Ju, I've been thinking for the past few days. Maybe the big fish was swimming in the sea at that time, and then the mountain suddenly collapsed and the earth cracked and it was trapped in the mountain rocks. The hole in the sky above was formed when the big fish jumped and hit it, and the gap at the side was probably formed in the same way. However, it was exhausted and couldn't escape in the end. It could only blame its own bad luck, and Lin Chuan said as he leaned against the stone wall and looked at the hole on top of his head. Yun Chujio didn't say anything. The world had changed. This big fish might have been an overlord in the sea back then. Didn't it also become a skeleton like this in the end? So what was the purpose of living? Sooner or later they would die. Why did they have to work so hard to cultivate? It was better to die early. After Lin Chuan finished speaking, he did not hear Yun Chujio speak for a long time. He turned around and saw Yun Chujio looking at the big fish skeleton with a dull look in her eyes. And Lin Chuan was shocked. Junior sister Xiaojiu? Junior sister Xiaojiu? Yun Chujio still did not respond. She looked at the big fish skeleton in a daze. And Lin Chuan panicked. He couldn't care less about the differences between men and women. He used his hand to pull Yun Chujio's arm. Junior sister Xiaojiu, what happened to you? Don't scare me. Yun Chujio only regained her senses after being pulled by him. He was shocked. Why did she have such negative thoughts just now? This didn't seem like her personality at all. Why did people live? There were thousands of reasons. They could be family, friendship, love, or self-improvement and realization. They could also be for a certain spirit. Living was the greatest happiness for a person. Therefore, why did she have such a negative thought that she would die sooner or later? Could it be a Guai Chao? The Guai Chao in her dantian kept swinging its leaves. This time it really was not its doing. Ever since this fellow saw that Yun Chujio didn't have the heart to kill it in Yun Chujio's illusion, this fellow had already eliminated the last bit of evil intention. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes and looked at the big fish skeleton. Could it be that it was the culprit? However, she looked at Lin Chuan beside her. If it was the big fish skeleton, why was this idiot unaffected? Yun Chuju looked at it and finally found the crux of the problem. The only difference between her and Enlinchuan was that Enlinchuan had been sitting by the side of the stone wall, while she had been sitting on a stone. This stone had been buried under many bones. Yun Chujio and Enlinchuan had exposed it when they were cleaning the bones. Yun Chujio had checked it before. Enlinchuan rubbed his nose. I don't have any thoughts. I just feel that there's no meaning in living. However, junior sister Gio, that's definitely not what I think. I haven't married and had children yet. I still have to travel all over the immortal essence continent. How could I feel that there's no meaning in living? Yun Chujio nodded. I had the same thoughts as you just now. Seems that there's something wrong with this stone. Sitting on it would also cause me to have negative emotions. There is a stone with such an effect? Oh my god, could it be that the big fish from before died because of this stone? And Linchuan shouted. Yun Chujio squatted down and looked at the stone carefully. It is not impossible. I have seen a description of a stone that is very similar to it in ancient books. That stone is called the Dead Stone. People who get close to it will have negative emotions. Junior sister Xiaojio, since this stone is so strange, why don't you stay away from it? Why are you so close to it? Get up, it'll destroy it. And Linchuan said as he pulled Yun Chujio away. Before Yun Chujio could react, this guy threw a palm strike at the stone. And Linchuan used all his strength in this palm strike. Unfortunately, not only was there not a single crack on the stone, it didn't even move. The stone was fine, but Linchuan's face had turned dull again. Yun Chujio couldn't help but laugh. She had no choice but to kick Linchuan again. And Linchuan fell to the ground, and only then did he wake up. Senior brother, and you'd better stay far away. I'll study it again, Yun Chujio said with a smile. And Linchuan laughed awkwardly. Junior sister Xiaojio, weren't you also affected by it previously? Why aren't you affected now? I've learned from my mistakes. Besides, I'm on guard now, so it won't affect me so easily, Yun Chujio said nonchalantly. And Linchuan was obviously not convinced, so he moved closer to the stone and fell into a daze again. Yun Chujio had no choice but to give him another kick. Junior sister Xiaojio, can't you find another way to wake me up? Why must you kick me? And Linchuan muttered as he rubbed his butt. Yun Chujio ignored him. She felt that there was something fishy about this dead stone. Even if it was very strong, and Linchuan's palm just now could not move it at all. When Yun Chujio thought of this, she took out her pickaxe and began to dig around the dead stone. The more she dug, the more frightened she became. This dead stone looked like a small piece on the surface, but underneath it was a very large piece. What was exposed above was just a small tip. And Linchuan didn't dare to get too close. He even put a basin of cold water on the ground. When he felt dizzy, he stuck his head into the basin and then he could wake up. As he looked at it, he could see the trick. He said in surprise, Junior sister Xiaojio, that broken stone looks like a statue. Yun Chujio was too close to it, so she really couldn't see it. She took a few steps back to take a look. It was true. The part that she had dug out looked like the part above a person's forehead. Yun Chujio continued to dig, and the more she dug, the more shocked she became. This statue was wearing a mask, and it was actually very similar to the shit owner that she saw in the cave of the human-faced octopus. Or it could be said that it was the same person. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. Although the stone sculpture had rough lines, it had a charm that made people submit to it. If Linchuan had not plunged his head into the basin, he would have already knelt down and kowtowed. Yun Chujio frowned. These fish bones had been petrified for at least tens of thousands of years. At that time there was already a statue of this dog shit owner, which further proved that the Divine Devil Hall had existed before. At least this shitty lord did exist. Didn't this mean that the shitty lord of the Divine Devil Temple had lived for tens of thousands of years? However, it was also true. Since he could tear through the void, it was very likely that he had the cultivation of a god. It was not surprising that he had lived for tens of thousands of years. Previously, there were murals in the cave of the human-faced octopus. Now there was a statue at the bottom of the sea. Could it be that the Divine Devil Temple's power was mainly in the sea? Yun Chujio thought of the mermaid man again. The mermaids lived in the sea. Could their extermination be related to the Divine Devil Temple? And Linchuan saw that Yun Chujio did not speak for a long time and thought that she was affected by the dead silent stone. In a moment of desperation, he poured a basin of water on Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio almost gasped. Just as she was about to teach Enlinchuan a lesson, she was surprised to find that some of the water that had been poured on the ground was seeping down through the cracks beside the statue. To be precise, it didn't seem like it was seeping into the statue, but rather it seemed like it was flowing down. Could it be that the bottom was empty? Just as Yun Chujio thought of this, the big fish skeleton suddenly collapsed. And Linchuan was unlucky enough to be right under the big fish skeleton. As he dodged, he shouted, "Junior sister Xiaojio, quickly dodge." Yun Chujio also quickly dodged to the side. The big fish skeleton had smashed into the stone statue. She didn't know what mechanism it had smashed into, but a dazzling red light flashed past. And Linchuan and Yun Chujio didn't have the time to react, they disappeared on the spot. Not only them, even the stone statue had disappeared without a trace. There were only bones scattered all over the ground. Right, there was also an Linchuan's basin that had fallen on the ground. As Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu were in closed-door cultivation, Mountain Master and rarely summoned an Linchuan apart from lecturing. Therefore, after these two disappeared for a few days, it was Shangguan Hao who discovered that the two of them had disappeared. Therefore, after much investigation, a female disciple from Alcade Peak said that Yun Chujio and An Linchuan had gone to the back mountain of Alcade Peak for a few days in a row. Furthermore, they had an intimate attitude towards each other. Could it be that they had eloped? Mountain Master and almost fainted from anger. This useless brat. Learning from the good without learning from the bad. In the past he only didn't cultivate properly. Now he actually learned to elope? Mountain Master and looked at the furious Mountain Master Bailey and stroked his forehead. Mountain Master and calmed down. Even if the two of them really had that intention, they wouldn't go so far as to elope. There should be a misunderstanding. Let's properly search the back mountain of Alcade Peak. When Mountain Master and heard Mountain Master Bailey's words, he calmed down slightly. After thinking about it, it made sense. He didn't object to that bastard being in love. There was no need for him to elope out of the primordial chaos sect. He was really out of his mind. Mountain Master and hurriedly arranged for everyone to search the back of the mountain of Alcade Peak, but to no avail. In the end, it was still Shangguan Hao who remembered that An Linchuan had once said that there was a secret territory of his at the back of the mountain of Alcade Peak. After searching carefully, he finally found the cave behind the thick vines. Everyone saw the wash basin at a glance, but they weren't as careful as Yun Chujio. They only thought that the ground was filled with rocks. Shangguan Hao picked up the wash basin on the ground and looked at it. This wash basin belongs to Junior Brother and I've seen it before. He couldn't have left it here for no reason. Could something have happened to him and Junior Sister Jio? When everyone heard Shangguan Hao's words, they immediately became worried. However, no matter how much they thought about it, they could not understand why there was a wash basin here all of a sudden. After speculating about it, they finally came to a conclusion. The two of them were probably too rushed when they were captured. They threw out something casually to remind them that it happened to be a wash basin. However, the primordial chaos sect was heavily guarded. How could the two of them be captured? Where were they taken to? Everyone searched for a while but did not find anything unusual. In the end, everyone focused their attention on the top of the sinkhole. Could it be that the person had left from above? However, if the two of them were captured alive, it was impossible for them not to be discovered. Moreover, the top of the sinkhole was within the range of the mountain behind the Alcade Peak. Even if the person was riding a sword, it was impossible for them not to be discovered. No matter how hard they thought, they could not understand. They could only send people to search the sect and its surroundings. However, Yun Chujio and An Linchuan seemed to have disappeared into thin air. There was not a single trace left behind. At this moment, the two people who had been eloped felt as if they were in a world of ice and fire. A certain Jio was in high spirits. She was so happy that she was dancing with joy. On the other hand, the miserable An Linchuan felt that he would only be able to live for another day if he was picked up. The place where the two of them were at now was covered in fog and there was no end to it. The ground was filled with rocks made from the bones of sea beasts, which were similar to the fish bones that the two of them had seen before. And Linchuan sat on a large bone with his head drooping. He said with his head drooping, "Sigh. Junior Sister Jiu, if I had known that the object of my childhood was a pile of bones, I wouldn't have brought you to that crappy cave. If we hadn't entered that crappy cave, we wouldn't have been trapped here. It's all my fault." A certain Jiu said while nibbling on the spirit fruit, "Senior brother, and I think this place is pretty good. It's so quiet here. And no one dislikes me. It's much better than being in the primordial chaos sect." And Lin Chuan smiled, but his smile was even uglier than crying. Little ninth junior sister, are you sure this place is quiet? It's over, here it comes again. Little ninth junior sister, quick, protect me. When Lin Chuan first asked Yun Chujio to protect him, he was still a little embarrassed. Now it had become very easy to talk about it. In order to survive he should just let it go to hell. The fog had begun to slowly disperse and deafening voices came from all directions. Have you thought it through? Are you loyal to your master? Loyal to your grandmother, my foot. Get out of my way. Let us out of here quickly, or I will scold you 8 times a day. Yun Chujio placed her hands on her hips and pointed at the sky while scolding. Impudent. You yellow-mouthed child, you speak insolently. You are courting death. Boom, boom, boom. Several bolts of lightning struck at Yun Chujio and Lin Chuan. He Xinjiu was overjoyed and jumped up and down to get struck by the lightning while protecting Lin Chuan from being struck by the heavenly lightning. And Lin Chuan supported himself with his spiritual energy shield. He looked at the busy Yun Chujio with a dumbfounded expression. He had known that this junior sister of his was sick, but he had never expected her to be so sick. The more he was struck by the lightning, the happier he became. If this wasn't sick, what was it? Even if it was a heavenly lightning spiritual root, it shouldn't be so sick, right? Just as Lin Chuan was in a daze, he heard Yun Chujio say, Xiao Hei Xiao Mogu, I'll leave this idiot to you. And Lin Chuan was still in a daze when he saw a fat bird and Xiao Mogu beside him. And Lin Chuan almost cried. What did junior sister Xiaojiu mean? Was she not going to care about him? Junior sister Xiaojiu, you can't do this. I'm your senior brother. You can't just ignore me. And Lin Chuan grinned and almost hugged Yun Chujio's thigh. Yun Chujio looked at him speechlessly. Senior brother, and don't worry. The 2 of them are enough to protect you. And Lin Chuan looked at the left side of the fat has been like an old hen, that dark autumn bird, and looked at the right side of Xiao Mogu has not fist-sized. These 2 things can protect him? You got to be kidding me. At this moment, a bolt of lightning as thick as an adult's arm struck down at Lin Chuan. And Lin Chuan quickly reinforced another layer of spiritual energy shield. Although the effect was probably limited, it was still much better than being hacked into charcoal. Just as Lin Chuan was preparing for battle, he saw the fat bird flapping its 2 short wings and pouncing at the lightning, swallowing it. And Lin Chuan had already predicted what would happen next. This fat bird would turn into a roasted chicken. But in the end, nothing happened to the fat bird. It even spoke in human language. Again. I've been hungry for many days. And Lin Chuan's mind was blank. 2 sentences flashed through his mind. This fat bird can swallow lightning. This fat bird can speak human language. Before he could digest these 2 sentences, another lightning bolt struck down. Xiao Mogu on the right stretched out a long mycelium and snatched the lightning away from the fat bird. Xiao Mogu, you stole my lightning again. Are you looking for a beating? The fat bird said angrily with one wing on its waist and the other pointing at Xiao Mogu. And Lin Chuan's eyes twitched. The way this fat bird scolded Xiao Mogu was exactly the same as Xiao Hanyo. Following that, Lin Chuan watched as Xiao Hanyo and Xiao Mogu fought over a bolt of lightning. It was as if the terrifying lightning bolt was incomparably delicious to them. He had really seen a ghost. And Lin Chuan was initially surprised, but he had become numb to it. Xiao Hanyo was a pervert and her spiritual pet was also a pervert. No wonder she rarely released her spiritual pet. No wonder she despised the little bastard. It was true. With such a perverted spiritual pet, she naturally despised the little bastard. After a while, the heavenly lightning ended and the fog spread again. And Lin Chuan heaved a sigh of relief. Although he had Xiao Hanyo and Xiao Mogu to protect him, he was still a little scared when he saw the terrifying heavenly lightning. Yun Chujio sighed faintly. Sigh. Can't this lightning strike for a while longer? This little thing isn't even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. And Lin Chuan, he seemed to understand why junior sister Jio said that this place was pretty good. It was because this pervert seemed to like being struck by lightning. A thought flashed through his mind. Junior sister Jio had been locked in the cave of reflection many times. Could it be because of the lightning in the cave of reflection? And Lin Chuan stood up at the thought of this and pointed at Yun Chujio with a trembling finger. Junior sister Xiao Jio, do you have a way to get out, but you don't plan to get out because of the lightning? Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. Senior brother, and you're thinking too much. I really have no way to get out now. This guy emphasized the word now and added silently in his heart. This place was so good, why did he have to think of a way to get out? He would think of a way to get out when there was no more lightning. And Lin Chuan did not know the twists and turns in this guy's heart. Seeing how sincere Yun Chujia's words were, he believed her and said guiltily, "Junior sister Xiaojiu, I was just saying that. Don't take it to heart. Senior brother and I'm such a magnanimous person, I won't be angry with you. Come, let's eat barbecue," a certain Jiu said with a smile. And Lin Chuan saw that Yun Chujiu had no way out, so he had no choice but to start barbecuing. No matter what, he had to eat first. For a few days in a row the two of them had the same pattern. The voice that asked them to seek refuge with the divine devil hall would ring twice a day, and after each time, there would be heavenly lightning striking down. The heavenly lightning here was much stronger than the heavenly lightning that passed through the cave. A certain Jiu felt that this was an unexpected surprise, and it was the kind of surprise that could win a big prize for free. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Yun Chujiu was stunned to find that the heavenly lightning seemed to be getting weaker and weaker. Couldn't be, right? She hadn't absorbed enough yet and it was about to disappear? It was simply a defective product. Bad review. After another 2 days, the heavenly lightning was so weak that it could be ignored. Even Lin Chuan didn't need to use his spiritual energy shield anymore. After another 2 days, that voice still rang out as usual, but the heavenly lightning was completely gone. Yun Chujiu pointed at the top and scolded, "Are you planning to use words to threaten us? Hurry up and hack us. After a few more days we might agree to pledge our loyalty to that dogshit owner of yours." And Lin Chuan silently ridiculed from the side. "You've absorbed all the lightning from the other party, so why are you still hacking us?" Yun Chujiu cursed for 13 times but no more lightning came down. This guy said angrily, "Bah. You're so stingy. If you don't hack us, then forget it. If you don't hack us, then I'll have to think of a way to get out." And Lin Chuan weakly said from the side, "Junior sister Xiaojiu, didn't you say that there's no way to get out?" "I didn't have a way out when you asked me, but it doesn't mean that I have no way out. Come, let's walk around. There must be a way out," Yun Chujiu said with a smile. And Lin Chuan, why did he feel like he had been fooled? However, they had walked a long distance these days, but they still hadn't found the border of this area. Could little ninth junior sister find a way out? Senior brother, and do you know what the fastest way out of a secret realm or sealed area is? And Lin Chuan scratched his head. Of course it's to crack the array formation. Can you crack the array formation here? No, Yun Chujiu said matter-of-factly. And Lin Chuan felt like he could not take it anymore. He glared at Yun Chujiu. "Since you can't do it, why are you asking me? Do you have another way out?" "Of course I do. I want the weapon spirit here to let us out. It's the weapon spirit that had a friendly conversation with us twice a day," Yun Chujiu said with a cunning look in her eyes. "Qiling, do you have any other way to get out?" And Lin Chuan's eyes twitched. "Friendly conversation? Are you sure? Besides, since the weapon spirit had locked them up here, why would Qiling let them out? Could it be that junior sister Jiu had been struck by lightning?" After a while, when that voice sounded again, Yun Chujiu said with a frown, "Hey. Now that we have thought it through, we agree to be loyal to that dog of yours. Yes, you're incomparably awesome, master." That voice was clearly a little confused. Previously, when it used the heavenly lightning to strike, this wretched girl did not agree. Now that it had struck the heavenly lightning, she actually agreed? There must be something fishy going on here. "Humph. You're lying to me. I don't believe it," that voice said suspiciously. "This weapon spirit of yours is really interesting. I said that I didn't agree and you used lightning to strike me. Now that I have agreed, you still don't believe me. Then what do you want us to do?" Yun Chujiu crossed her arms and curled her lips as she spoke. That voice was obviously somewhat at a loss because of Yun Chujiu's rebuke. After a long while she said, "Since you have agreed, then you should swear to be loyal to our Lord. After you have sworn the poison oath, I will plant a soul imprint in your spiritual sense." Yun Chujiu immediately said with a smile, "Heaven above and yellow earth below. I Yun Chujiu hereby swear that I will be loyal to the Lord in the future. If I violate this oath, I will be struck by lightning when I walk, by lightning when I eat, by lightning when I sleep, and by lightning from time to time. I will be struck by lightning for 49 days. Qiling, are you sure this is a punishment and not a reward?" Thou art not afraid of being struck by lightning. This doesn't count. Swear again. You're really troublesome. Alright, I'll say it again. If I don't keep my word, then let me drown. Although this fellow felt that she couldn't drown with the water-repellent bead, just in case, this fellow's left hand behind her back wrote 2 words on the palm of her right hand. It doesn't count. And Lin Chuan, who was standing behind her, saw it and his mouth twitched. Damn, so it could be like this? He had learned a lot. How would the Qiling know that there was such a thing? Seeing that Yun Chujio had made such a poisonous vow, the suspicion in his heart was immediately dispelled a lot. Then he had Lin Chuan make the same poisonous vow. And Lin Chuan followed her example and secretly wrote "it doesn't count" on his palm. Then he said the poisonous vow with a serious face. Qiling, do you believe me now? We have already made the poison vow. Come out and plant the mark on our spiritual sense. Yun Chujio said with a smile like a wolf with a big tail. The simple Qiling didn't know that these 2 guys were doing something behind their backs. He felt that since they had already made the poison vow, they wouldn't dare to break the vow. Therefore, after the fog dispersed, a jellyfish-like Qiling appeared in front of the 2 of them. Come here, I will plant a spiritual imprint on you. The jellyfish-like Qiling said arrogantly. Yun Chujio smiled and moved closer. I will go first. Qiling, come quickly. Plant a spiritual imprint on me so that I can go out and help Master. Hearing Yun Chujio's words, the jellyfish-like Qiling was very satisfied. It waved at Yun Chujio and said, come here. Yun Chujio smiled at it. The jellyfish tool spirit's heart skipped a beat. Before it could do anything, Yun Chujio had already covered it with a sticky net in her hand. Just as the jellyfish tool spirit was about to escape, a 10,000-year-old black iron chain had already tied it up tightly. Hei Xinjiu took out a needle and poked at the jellyfish tool spirit's head, thinking that it was very funny. Qiling's eyes were filled with excitement. You cheated. You will be punished by the oath. The jellyfish tool spirit's originally white body had already turned red from anger. Qiling's eyes were filled with anger. Is that so? Then let me be punished by the oath. However, before that, it was more than enough to deal with a little thing like you. You want to make a seal? Unfortunately, this 10,000-year-old black iron chain isolated spiritual power, so you can't make a seal. Don't you think it's infuriating? A certain Jiao continued poking at it with the needle. The more she poked, the more addicted she became. Why was it broken? The spiritual energy of the jellyfish artifact, which was about to be poked into a lotus seed pod, began to draw out. Release me immediately or you'll never get out, Qiling said. Yun Chujio continued to poke with a smile. If we can't get out, then we can't get out. There's no danger in here and we can poke you to play with it. So we plan to stay here for a long time. Moreover, we plan to renovate this place and write more slogans. For example, the Divine Devil Hall is a bunch of turtle bastards. For example, that dog shit owner is an idiot. You shut up. You deserve to die. I shut up? If you want me to shut up, then I'll shut up? I said that shitlord of yours is a coward. Otherwise, why wouldn't he dare to come out? Why did he only let his underlings come out to fight? He even put on a mask for a broken statue. Obviously, he's too ashamed to face anyone. You're talking nonsense. You deserve to die. I'm talking nonsense? Let's not talk about anything else. Let's talk about the bones of the sea beasts here. How did these sea beasts die? It must be related to that fucking god, right? What did they do wrong? What right do they have to deprive them of their right to live? They are also creatures born and bred. What right does he have to decide their life and death? You, the jellyfish artifact spirit Qiling, did not know how to refute Yun Chujio even after a long time. Yun Chujio sneered, what else do you have to say? That shit master has been planning for tens of thousands of years. Perhaps his spiritual power is really terrifying, but those who have achieved the Tao will have more help, while those who have lost the Tao will have less help. In the end, he will still fail. The color of Qiling's body had turned from red to black. It said fiercely, no matter what you say, you will never get out. You will be trapped here for the rest of your life. When Yun Chujio was about to take care of the jellyfish artifact spirit, countless remnant souls of sea beasts floated on the dry bones on the ground. The jellyfish artifact spirit screamed in fear. No, it's impossible. The remnant souls of these sea beasts have been refined by me. Why do they still exist? Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes and looked at the remnant souls of the sea beasts. These were real remnant souls. They were so weak that they would dissipate even with a breath. The remnant souls of the sea beasts continued to rush towards the jellyfish artifact spirit. Yun Chujio subconsciously moved aside. Qiling had a feeling that the remnant souls of the sea beasts were helping her. She had a hunch that the remnant souls of the sea beasts were helping her. Perhaps it was the words she had said earlier that had awakened them. Or perhaps they had been unwilling to give up and had been waiting for an opportunity to take revenge. The remnant souls of the sea beasts pounced on the body of the jellyfish artifact spirit and began to bite it. According to common sense, the artifact spirit of the mystical realm would not be killed easily. However, the number of remnant souls of the sea beast was very large. Moreover, they were filled with resentment and hostility. Qiling's eyes were filled with hatred and hostility. The jellyfish artifact spirit kept screaming, and its body became smaller and smaller until it disappeared. And Linchuan, who was watching from the side, was dumbfounded. Damn, such a situation was so rare that he had never dreamed of it before. Yun Chujio, who was watching from the side, looked at the scene in front of her thoughtfully. It seemed that she was most likely right about what she said earlier. The death of the sea beasts was directly or indirectly related to the master. While Yun Chujio was pondering, the ground began to shake violently. This guy thought that it might not be good and the place would probably collapse. This guy was not willing to give up his life and money. At this time he did not forget to put the sticky silk net and the 10,000-year-old mysterious iron chain into his storage ring. Then he shouted at the remnant souls of the sea beasts, "Little babies, quickly tell me, where should I run to?" As soon as Yun Chujio said that, her and Enlinchuan's bodies were pushed into the sky by a huge force. Yun Chujio looked down and saw countless remnant souls of the sea beasts holding them up, one layer after another. Yun Chujio's heart was filled with sorrow. With so many sea beasts dying at the same time, one could imagine what kind of tragic situation it was at that time. "I, Yun Chujio, have received your grace. Don't worry, I will definitely destroy the god and demon temple and kill that bullshit supremacy to avenge you." The remnant souls of the sea beasts let out a wave of sorrowful cries. Even Linchuan, who had a rough outline, could feel the sorrowful feeling. His eyes could not help but turn red. At this moment the ground below had already begun to collapse. Loud booms kept coming from the ground. If Yun Chujio and Linchuan had not been lifted up by the remnant souls of the sea beasts in the air, they would have been buried alive. The remnant souls of the sea beasts suddenly exerted force. Yun Chujio and Linchuan felt their bodies being thrown high into the air, followed by a dazzling white light. When the two of them regained their sight, they found that they were at the top of a mountain. And Linchuan looked around and found a hole in front of them. He ran over and lay down to take a look. He shouted in surprise, "Junior sister Xiaojiu, come and take a look. This is the cave from before. We're out. We should be in the sect now." Yun Chujio was obviously not as stupid as Linchuan. She stood up and looked into the distance. The other 6 mountains and the mountain peak below them formed the Big Dipper. Wasn't that the Hunyuan sect? And Linchuan was dancing with joy. "Junior sister Xiaojiu, there will definitely be good fortune after surviving this disaster. We have escaped death." Yun Chujio nodded. "Let's not talk about the lightning strike. Let's jump to the oath and the remnant soul of the sea beast. Do you understand? Junior sister Xiaojiu, don't worry. Although I'm careless, I understand what I should say and what I shouldn't say. Let's go. Let's ride the sword down." And Linchuan said as he summoned his sword and was about to ride it away when Yun Chujio suddenly had a flash of inspiration in her mind. The Big Dipper? The 7 peaks of the Chaos Origin sect formed the Big Dipper. Could it be a kind of formation and its purpose was to suppress the mystic realm they had encountered before? Or was there something else buried under the Chaos Origin sect? Another example was the Murder Origin sect. The 5 peaks of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth contained the 5 elements. Could it be that they were also suppressing something? Yun Chujio thought about it carefully. It seemed that every time they encountered something from the devil or the divine devil hall, there was something suppressing it. It was either a divine weapon, a formation, or a natural barrier. Perhaps they had a great battle with the divine devil hall back then. And then they suppressed the remaining survivors. And now, the survivors that had been suppressed all over ran out one after another. The divine devil hall would definitely make a comeback. Divine devil hall, divine? Devil? Yun Chuju didn't think about this name too much in the past. Now that she thought about it, this name was extremely strange. It was either a god or a devil. How could gods and devils collude with each other? Why would they come up with such a contradictory name? And Lin Chuan saw that Yun Chuju seemed to be deep in thought. He gently tugged at her. Junior sister Xiaojie, what are you thinking about? Let's hurry down. I think both the sect leader and my father are worried sick. Yun Chujio heard Lin Chuan's words and shook her head. She couldn't rush things in the Divine Devil Hall. She would definitely be able to find the truth if she took her time. He couldn't rush it. Thus, Lin Chuan rode his sword while a certain Jiao rode her chopping board and flew down the mountain. Soon someone saw the two of them. Look. Aren't those the eloping Yun Chujio and Lin Chuan? They're back. Yes, those two have gone somewhere to have fun. They have tormented us so much that we almost turned the back of Yaoguang Peak upside down. After making such a ruckus, I reckon that Mountain Master can only agree to their matter. A certain figure in the dark narrowed his eyes, and the cold air on his body leaked out. The few trees beside him instantly turned into dust. Elope? Very good, very good. He Xinjiu did not know that a certain someone was jealous. This guy and Lin Chuan went to Master Bailey's place to explain the matter before humming a tune and returning to the dormitory. The moment this guy pushed open the courtyard door, he was almost turned into an ice sculpture. He saw a certain someone sitting there with a cold face. The disaster-prone tree in the courtyard had been completely destroyed. Only a tree stump was left there pitifully. Prince Charming, you're here. Let me tell you, a few days ago a certain Jiao's words came out of nowhere. Because the green stone slab started to crack with a certain Jiao at the center, and the house behind her started to shake, this guy finally realized that something was wrong. That Prince Charming, calm down. Calm down. Impulsiveness is the devil. Impulsiveness is the devil. What's wrong with you? Di Baiming's eyes were fixed on Yun Chujio. His body was slightly trembling as he squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. You eloped with him? A certain Jiao was dumbfounded. Eloped? She eloped with someone? What a joke. Prince Charming, are you sure you're talking about me? I eloped with someone? If I eloped, I would be eloping with you too. A certain Jiao had an innocent look on her face. Tell me what's going on. Who's that monkey-faced man? Although a certain Jiao still trusted Yun Chujio in his heart, he couldn't control the jealousy in his heart when he heard the discussions of those people. Especially when his little wife was getting more and more beautiful. He saw that all men were love rivals. The corner of Yun Chujio's eyes twitched. Monkey-faced man? Although senior brother was not as good-looking as you, he was also a good-looking person, okay? However, this guy knew that he was on the verge of exploding, so he could only stroke his hair with a look of disgust. He said, Prince Charming, you said senior brother He is an idiot. He is even more stupid than a black chicken. The thing is, a few days ago, Yun Chujio told him everything. In order to increase the credibility of the story, this guy even told her about Lin Chuan, saying that only the blind would marry her. So, a certain Jiao successfully transferred the anger of a certain god to a certain unlucky guy. A certain Jiao narrowed her eyes. Did he not have eyes? Very good. A certain Jiao stole a glance and saw that the cold air on a certain god's body had dissipated a lot. Then she said eagerly, Prince Charming, have you eaten lunch? Come, let's not be angry with that pointy-mouthed monkey-faced idiot. Let's eat. Di Baiming snorted coldly and did not say anything, but he did not reject her either. A certain Jiao secretly heaved a sigh of relief. This article was finally over for the time being. This fellow was ruthless in his heart. Fuck, when she was free he would definitely beat up those scums who were spreading rumors. This fellow diligently placed the dishes that Di Baiming liked to eat. Then he eagerly helped to pick up the dishes and serve the rice. He was just short of feeding them with a spoon. After a meal, a certain Jiao's expression finally returned to normal. A certain Jiao tried to find something to say. Male god, the jade token you gave me last time really helped me a lot. Otherwise, I really wouldn't know what to do. Male god, you're really amazing. A wisp of your divine sense actually crushed those dregs to death. My admiration for you is like a torrential river. The corners of a certain venerated's mouth curled up imperceptibly. A few days ago I found another jade token of the same material. You can keep it. Yun Chujio received the jade token from Di Baiming and the smile on her face became even brighter. Prince Charming, you are really too good. Come give me a kiss. A certain Geo naturally wouldn't reject this gift that was delivered to her door. She hugged a certain Geo and made out with her. After a period of intimacy, a certain Geo had long forgotten about the matter of eloping. Her eyes were filled with deep affection and doting. A certain Geo saw that the rain had passed and the sky was clear. She immediately began to show off. This bastard brought out the little bastard. Prince Charming, look. This is the little bastard that I obtained in the sea of the ends of the earth. I said that I didn't want it, but that big bastard insisted on giving it to me as a spirit pet. Although the little bastard was still young, spirit beasts had a keen instinct for danger. When they felt the pressure and cold air from debeaming, they were so scared that their heads and tails even shrank into their shells. Debeaming only glanced at it and snorted coldly. What's the point of keeping such useless things? Just find a puddle and throw it away. When the little bastard heard Debeaming's words, he was so scared that his turtle shell trembled. Seeing this, Yunchujio hurriedly said, "Little bastard, summon the turtle shell and let Prince Charming take a look." The little bastard trembled as he summoned the turtle shell and then hid his head and tail inside. When Debeaming saw the turtle shell, he took a few more glances. This turtle shell is not bad. Although it has not been refined by a weaponsmith, its defense is not bad. Where did this turtle shell come from? The bastard said that this turtle shell belongs to the little bastard's mother. Is this turtle shell really not bad? Yunchujio asked in surprise. To be able to make Debeaming say that it was not bad, it should be really not bad. Debeaming nodded. The little bastard's mother should not be the dragon head turtle of the wilderness. Instead, it looks like the dragon blood turtle of the wilderness that has the black tortoise bloodline. From the looks of it, this little bastard is not too useless. You can keep it for now. Hearing Debeaming's words, Yunchujio immediately danced with joy and said smugly, "I knew that my luck wouldn't be so bad. Prince Charming, let me tell you, I even got half a spiritual stone mine." Debeaming was stunned. Half a spiritual stone mine? What's going on? Don't mention it. I met a human-faced octopus in the sea of the world. After it self-detonated, I was rushed to the edge of the chessboard island. The old priest insisted that I was some heavenly lady, so I had no choice but to admit it. He even pretended that senior brother Shangguan and senior brother and were my husband. Boom. The stone table and stone bench were instantly turned into dust, and the green stone slabs on the ground were completely destroyed. Even the 3 houses behind them were instantly reduced to rubble. Fortunately, Yunchujio had activated the isolation array. Otherwise, such a huge commotion would have attracted many people. Yunchujio only realized later that she had said the wrong thing. Moreover, it was the kind of wrong words that could not be undone. She regretted it so much that her intestines were turning green. Why did her IQ drop when she was in front of the gigolo? Oh no. Oh no. The gigolo was definitely going to teach her a lesson. That Prince Charming, I just said it out of convenience at that time. It's a matter of urgency. Don't be rash, listen to me and I'll explain it to you properly. A certain Geo was afraid that a certain Geo would kill 2 unlucky people in a fit of anger. She hugged a certain Geo's waist tightly and refused to let go. A certain Geo's eyes were red with anger. Now it was no longer a matter of being jealous. A certain Geo was now like a big firecracker that could explode at any time. Good. Very good. Husband. Husband of both sizes? It seems that what you said wasn't for nothing. So that's what you were thinking in your heart. I came to see you day and night. First, you acted out an elopement act for me, and now you've brought me husbands of all ages. You black thing, you've really disappointed me. At the end of his speech, there was a slight tremble in his voice. It was unknown whether he was angry or sad. A certain Geo was so anxious that her forehead was sweating. Prince Charming, it's a misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. Calm down, you must calm down. Debeaming broke free from Yunchujio's hand in an instant. He turned around and looked at Yunchujio with red eyes. Black thing, whatever disaster you've caused, this venerable one can help you clean up the aftermath. However, you shouldn't create any drama about eloping with any husband or husband. I still have other matters to attend to. You should think about it yourself. After a certain Geo finished speaking, she disappeared in a flash. A certain Geo looked at the mess on the ground and then thought about the look in a certain Geo's eyes when she left. She was anxious and aggrieved, and she was so angry that she was twitching. This gigolo is simply a big vinegar V. He's simply unreasonable. This fellow thought about it. Now that D. Biming was in a rage, he probably wouldn't listen to anything she said. It was better to talk about it in a few days. A certain Geo blinked her eyes and took out her identity jade token to send a message to the manager of the General Affairs office, asking him to arrange for people to repair her house. After the manager of the General Affairs office received Yoon Chujie's message, he was afraid that this bad news would cause trouble at the General Affairs office, so he quickly sent dozens of people over to help repair the house. Moreover, the materials they brought were all of the best quality. When the General Affairs office workers who were repairing the house came over and saw the miserable state of Yoon Chujie's courtyard, they immediately shrunk their necks. Oh my god, the house was not destroyed like this when the demon beasts rebelled last time. How did this ancestor do it? When they looked at Yoon Chujie's gloomy face, they immediately became even more terrified. This ancestor even dared to beat up an inner sect disciple. It was better not to offend her or else their lives would be in danger. Thus, during the repair process, these servants were afraid that Yoon Chujie would not be satisfied, so they forcefully repaired a servant's courtyard to be better than an inner disciple's courtyard. Moreover, it was fixed before the sun set. It could be said that they created the fastest speed for the servants to repair the house. A certain Geo sent a few voice transmission talismans to D. Biming at night, but D. Biming did not reply. The more he thought about it, the more angry he became. He vented his anger on the disciple who spread the rumor that she had eloped with Lin Chuan. The next day this guy brought a large kitchen knife to Yaoguang Peak. He found the disciples who spread the rumor, regardless of whether they were men or women, and gave them a good beating. Fuck, which eye of yours saw me eloping with senior brother in? Since your eyes are useless, do you want me to poke your eyes blind? You shameless bastard, are you slandering people with your long mouth? Do you want me to feed you some medicine to make you mute? What? You also heard it from others? Do you believe what others say? Since you don't use your brain, do you want me to help you cut off your head? All of a sudden the people on Yaoguang Peak were screaming and lying on the ground. Most of them were female disciples. It was not that these people had not resisted, but after seeing Yoon Chujie blow up a huge rock into powder, they immediately stopped. They were deeply aware of the fact that this fellow in front of them didn't care about the rules of the sect at all. If they provoked her, she would really dare to blow them up with talismans. And Lin Chuan, this fellow, had been locked up by Mountain Master and after hearing the news, he was afraid that Yoon Chujie would cause a big trouble, so he didn't care whether he was locked up or not. He hurriedly rushed over. Junior sister little Geo, junior sister little Geo, quickly stop. Yoon Chujie looked at Lin Chuan, who had a pointy mouth and a monkey's cheeks. He was instantly furious. She said coldly, go to the side. I'll settle the score with you later. And Lin Chuan shrunk his neck and obediently stood to the side. After a while this fellow finally reacted. He didn't do anything wrong. Why did junior sister Geo shout at him? Why did he feel guilty? He had really seen a ghost. The disciples on the ground originally thought that Lin Chuan's arrival would stop a certain Geo's atrocity. They didn't expect Yoon Chujie to stop her with a shout. Instantly their hearts turned cold. Some of the disciples secretly sent a message to Mountain Master and now only Mountain Master and could save them. After receiving the message, Mountain Master and flew into a rage. He was already somewhat dissatisfied with Yoon Chujie. He felt that ever since his son met Yoon Chujie he had never stopped, not to mention the scandal of eloping. Thus, Mountain Master and arrived at the scene of the accident with a stern face. Seeing the disciples beaten black and blue on the ground, Mountain Master and became even angrier. Yoon Chujie, what are you doing? Mountain Master and shouted sternly. Of course he didn't really mean to ask what Yoon Chujie was doing, but to ask her to stop and apologize. Unfortunately, a certain Jew didn't care about this. She kicked the disciple who reported the news a few times and then said to Mountain Master, a few days ago senior brother and I went into danger for the sake of the safety of the immortal essence continent. Originally we did not intend to ask for any praise, but we did not go so far as to slander us for eloping, did we? These people were the disciples of Untamed Peak and most of them were inner sect disciples. They did not cultivate properly, and all they did was spread rumors and slander senior brother and my reputation. Actually, my reputation was secondary. After all, I had always been thick-skinned. However, senior brother was your son. They slandered senior brother to slander you. As a junior, I really couldn't stand it, so I taught them a lesson. Of course, beating a dog depends on the owner. I'm not from Arcade Peak, so I beat them up on my own initiative. I was wrong. How about this? You can punish me however you want. Whether it's the Cave of Reflection or the Cave of Tranquility, I won't say anything. Yun Chujia's words rendered Mountain Master speechless. Although he was unwilling to admit it, Mountain Master was still somewhat dissatisfied with the previous rumors. However, as the Mountain Master, he couldn't punish these disciples to avoid suspicion. Today Yun Chujio had dealt with these disciples. In fact, he did not care much about it. What he cared about was that Yun Chujio had challenged his authority as the Peak Master of Arcade Peak. What he cared about was that Yun Chujio had corrupted his son. Just as Mountain Master was hesitating on how to deal with Yun Chujio, Lin Chuan pleaded on the side, "Father, junior sister Xiaojiao is also fighting for me. If you want to punish me, then punish me." Lin Chuan's words were like adding oil to a fire, and Mountain Master An's expression became even uglier. "Yun Chujio, as a part-time disciple, you beat up a disciple of my Arcade Peak. I will suggest to Master Bailey that you go to the far west to fight against the Nightmare Race." As soon as Mountain Master said this, Lin Chuan's expression changed. "Father, you can't do this. Those who go to the far west are all elders because their spiritual power is high enough. Junior sister Little Nine is only at the 6th level of the Ling Xian realm. If you let her go to the far west, then you are sending her to her death." Hearing Lin Chuan's words, Mountain Master became even angrier. He flung his sleeves and said, "Don't talk anymore. You have wasted your cultivation these days. Why don't you hurry back to your courtyard? If you talk anymore, don't come out." After Yun Chujio finished speaking, she hugged her shoulders and retreated to the side as if it had nothing to do with her. Lin Chuan's eyes reddened. Yes, this was what he was thinking. It was a pity that he didn't have the eloquence of junior sister Jiao. Although he felt aggrieved, he couldn't say it out loud. He naturally understood that Mountain Master was doing this for his own good, but he had his own thoughts. He really didn't like being manipulated by others in his life. Mountain Master didn't speak for a long time. He looked at Lin Chuan, whose eyes were red, and his heart felt like it was about to turn upside down. For a moment his heart was in a mess. Was he really wrong? Yun Chujio blinked her eyes, straightened her back and said, "Mountain Master, I was indeed reckless in today's matter. I'll go to the law enforcement office to receive my punishment now. Goodbye." After saying that, this guy ran away. What a joke. If he didn't run now, would he be sent to the far west? When Mountain Master came back to his senses, Hei Xinjiu had already run away. As for whether this guy went to the law enforcement office or not, who knew? Mountain Master glanced at the badly beaten disciples and snorted coldly as inner sect disciples, "You don't know how to cultivate properly. All you do is indulge in chasing after the wind and chasing after shadows. You're really useless. Reflect on yourselves." After Mountain Master finished speaking, he didn't bother with Lin Chuan, who was drooping his head. He just flicked his sleeves and left. The disciples of Arcade Peak were so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. Why did it sound like they had been beaten up for nothing? Didn't Mountain Master say that he wanted to send that scourge to the far west? Just because that scourge said a few words, he didn't plan to pursue the matter? Before everyone got up, they heard Lin Chuan say fiercely, "All of you be careful. If anyone talks nonsense again, I won't forgive you." After Lin Chuan finished speaking, he suddenly felt refreshed. It turned out that it felt so good to act recklessly. Fuck, since it was already like this, he wouldn't return to the courtyard to be confined. Thus, he took out his identity jade token and sent a message to Yun Chujio. "Junior sister Xiaojiao, where are you? I'll go look for you." Yun Chujio, this fellow, was jumping towards the law enforcement office when she received a message from Lin Chuan, asking him to go to the law enforcement office to look for her. When the disciples of the law enforcement office saw Yun Chujio, they all nodded and bowed. This guy was a VIP customer of the law enforcement office. He would come here every few days. It was hard not to recognize him. Manager Zhong saw that Yun Chujio was here again and immediately had the urge to run away. What did she do this time? "Junior sister Yun, why are you here today?" Manager Zhong asked tentatively. "Well, I made a small mistake today, so I came here to turn myself in." Yun Chujio sat on the chair swaggeringly. She didn't look like a disciple who made a mistake, but more like a distinguished guest. Small mistake? What small mistake? It's nothing. I just beat up the disciples of the Alcade Peak. It's not too serious. It's just a bloody nose and a swollen face, Yun Chujio said casually. Manager Zhong's attention was on the word they. He asked with a trembling voice, how many disciples of the Alcade Peak did you beat up? Not many. About 30 or 40. Time is limited, so I only found these people. They spread rumors and slandered senior brother and me. I just taught them a lesson. Alright, this is my mistake. You can deal with it as you see fit. You can deal with it however you want. I have no objections. It would be best if you can be locked in the hole of reflection. After Hei Shinjio finished speaking, she crossed her legs and picked up the snacks on the table and started munching on them. Manager Zhong's head was buzzing. He had beaten up 30 to 40 disciples of Alcade Peak. You are playing tricks. He did not dare to easily make a decision to punish such a prickly person. He could only find an excuse to meet Elder Chu. After Elder Chu heard this, he was also dumbfounded. This matter could be big or small. It mainly depended on the attitude of Mountain Master and of Alcade Peak, so he sent a message to Mountain Master and. A moment later, Mountain Master and replied to Elder Chu. The gist of it was that he did not have any objections and just let him deal with it according to the sect rules. Elder Chu stroked his beard. Mountain Master and had a temper that lit a fire. How could he be so calm this time? It was really strange. Elder Chu eagerly came to ask for Master Bailey's instructions again. Once Master Bailey heard that it was about Yun Chujio, his head ached. If it was according to the sect rules, it would have been fine if he had entered the cave of reflection. However, Master Bailey always felt that Yun Chujio had no good intentions after entering the cave of reflection, so he gritted his teeth and said, punish her by locking her in the courtyard. Send people to guard around and don't let her out. In another 2 months, just send her to the Yuan killing sect. After receiving the message from Elder Chu, Manager Zhong returned to the front. He saw Yun Chujio and Enrich playing cards, and there was a circle of law enforcement disciples around them. The atmosphere was very discordant. Manager Zhong's nose almost went crooked from anger. After coughing twice, the law enforcement disciples immediately scattered back to their posts. Yun Chujio giggled, Manager Zhong, it just so happens that we are short of one. Come, let's fight the landlord. Fight the landlord? Fight your head. After announcing Master Bailey's decision, Manager Zhong said, Junior Sister Yun, you can go back to the courtyard now. Our law enforcement department will arrange 3 groups of people to rotate every day to ensure your safety. Yun Chujio curled her lips. He really valued her. However, if he was willing to arrange people to guard her, then so be it. Anyway, if she wanted to come out, those people didn't dare to stop her. Therefore, this guy forcefully dragged Manager Zhong to play the landlord fight for 4 hours before leaving the law enforcement office with Enrich. Manager Zhong's heart almost broke down. He had every reason to suspect that Yun Chujio and Enrich were in cahoots to cheat him of his spirit stones. Otherwise, why would he lose regardless of whether he was a landlord or a farmer? On the way, Enrich said guiltily, Junior Sister Xiaojiu, I'm sorry. This is all my fault. If I hadn't dragged you to my secret territory, none of this would have happened. It has nothing to do with you. Those people deserve a beating. Besides, I feel like I've taken advantage of them. Yun Chujio yelled at Enrich in the morning to vent her anger. Now that this guy had vented his anger, it naturally turned into a sunny day. Seeing that Yun Chujio didn't seem to be lying, Enrich felt a little better in his heart. Then he said in a low voice, Junior Sister Xiaojiu, do you think that my father listened to your words? Otherwise he wouldn't have gone to find Master Bailey. Your father's motive is for your own good. He's just a little stubborn. He will understand. However, you also have a problem. How would your father know what you are thinking? So you have to communicate with him often. You're a father and son, not a cat and a mouse. What can't you tell him? Many things are not a big deal. It's just that there's a problem in communication. And Lin Chuan was thoughtful after hearing Yun Chujio's words. He thought for a moment and said, Junior Sister Xiaojiu, what you said makes sense. I'll go back and have a good talk with my father. After Enlin Chuan finished speaking, he disappeared without a trace. Yun Chujio looked at Enlin Chuan's back and shook her head. People could heal themselves but others could not heal themselves. She said that other people were all well-behaved. Whenever she encountered a gigolo, her IQ would drop. Thinking about it carefully, there was actually nothing serious between her and the gigolo. It was just that there were some communication problems. If she had used a different method or told the gigolo in advance, perhaps the gigolo would not have such a big reaction. However, the gigolo's bad habit of running away from home and not returning the voice transmission talisman was really annoying. If there was a chance, he must be properly treated. Yun Chujio strolled to the dormitory. Soon, the disciples of the law enforcement department took up their duties and surrounded Yun Chujio's courtyard. However, when they saw Yun Chujio's courtyard, they almost thought that they had found the wrong place. After confirming it again and again, they confirmed that they had not gone to the wrong place. Damn, why was this servant's courtyard better than the inner disciples' courtyard? However, they remembered what Manager Zhong had told them. The future stability and unity of the primordial chaos sect were all on their shoulders. All of them widened their eyes, afraid that Yun Chujio would sneak out of the courtyard and harm the primordial chaos sect. A certain Jiao walked out of the courtyard with a smile while the law enforcement disciples were staring at Yun Chujio's courtyard with full vigilance. Come, it's tough to stand guard for me. Eat some melon seeds. Don't worry, I just beat up those dregs from Yaoguang Peak this morning. I don't plan to go out today. The law enforcement disciples immediately grasped the main point of Yun Chujio's words. Today, she didn't plan to go out. It seemed that she still wanted to go out tomorrow. The leader of the law-enforcing disciples quickly advised her earnestly, "Junior sister Xiaojio, please forgive us. Just stay in the courtyard in peace. We will get whatever you need. It depends on your mood. You can eat the sunflower seeds. I'll go in and catch up on my sleep." After Hei Xinjiu said that, she closed the gate and went back to catch up on her sleep. Those law enforcement disciples wanted to cry, but they had no tears. They could foresee that the days in the future would be exciting. "Boss, what should we do with these melon seeds?" A law enforcement disciple asked with 2 packets of melon seeds in his hands. "Eat them. What else can we do? At least we can kill time," the little leader said in a bad mood. After catching up on her sleep, Hei Xinjiu stretched her body. She rested her chin on her hand and pondered for a while. Then she took out a sound transmission talisman and put it back after thinking for a while. She had already said what she should have said yesterday. If the gigolo could not figure it out, it would be useless for her to say anything more. Moreover, there was not even this little bit of trust between the two of them. How could they have a bullshit relationship? When this fellow thought of this, she decided not to think about de-beaming anymore. She sat cross-legged and began to cultivate. She had absorbed a lot of lightning power in the mystic realm previously. It was just right to use it for cultivation. After she had refined all of it, it should be enough for her to advance another 2 levels. Yun Chujio, on the other hand, was happily cultivating. After a certain someone who ran away from home flattened a mountain and destroyed a few trees, the anger in her heart finally subsided. Although he knew that Yun Chujio was just talking about a temporary measure, when he thought of his little wife calling another man her husband, his heart ached terribly. After he calmed down, a certain Jiao regretted his childish behavior of running away from home. However, he felt embarrassed to go back just like that. After receiving Yun Chujio's voice transmission talisman, a certain Jiao was ready to get off the mountain. Therefore, he returned to the Chaos Origin sect awkwardly in the early morning. He didn't expect that a certain Jiao would go to Alcade Peak early in the morning to act like a demon. When a certain Jiao had arrived at Yaoguang Peak, Yun Chujio was chatting with Mountain Master and because of Enlinchuan's matter. When a certain Jiao saw that Yun Chujio was actually speaking up for that monkey-faced guy, he remembered that this guy was also the subject of the eloping scandal, and it was even that fucking little husband. His vinegar bottle had turned over again. Thus, a certain Jiao had once again run away from home. A certain someone squatted on a mountaintop for a while. He originally thought that Yun Chujio would send him a voice transmission talisman again, but he did not expect that after waiting for a long time, there was no news at all. His face became even more gloomy. Even when the sun was setting in the west, Yun Chujio still ignored him. A certain someone could not sit still anymore. He walked around on the spot for a few rounds before finally gritting his teeth and arriving outside Yun Chujio's courtyard. When a certain law enforcement disciple saw those law enforcement disciples munching on melon seeds, his eyes immediately narrowed. What were these trash doing surrounding his little wife's courtyard? Biming had the intention to send these law enforcement disciples away, but he was also afraid that it would cause too much commotion. Hence he could only wait until the sky turned completely dark before flashing into Yoon Chujie's courtyard. A certain being circled around the courtyard a few times, but he still couldn't put down his pride and pushed the door open to enter the house. A certain being was furious. Why couldn't the black thing send him a voice transmission talisman? If he sent a voice transmission talisman, wouldn't he be able to follow the flow and enter? After circling around a few more times, a certain being's eyes finally lit up. The black thing sent him a voice transmission talisman, but he didn't reply to a single one. If he replied now, the black thing would definitely continue to apologize. When that time came, it would be natural for him to enter the house again. When a certain being thought of this, he hurriedly took out a voice transmission talisman. After he sent his divine sense in, Yoon Chujie's explanation was transmitted from inside. It was nothing more than saying that the husband of the eldest and the youngest was just a temporary measure and was not really blah blah blah. A certain being pondered over it and finally replied with an N. Then he eagerly waited for Yoon Chujie's reply. Inside the house, Yoon Chujie noticed that the voice transmission talisman was trembling. When she saw that it was Biming's voice transmission talisman, she could not help but twitch her lips. Was the pretty boy thinking things through? After Yoon Chujie sent her divine sense in and found that there was only one sound, she pouted again, put away the voice transmission talisman and continued to cultivate. A certain honored warrior outside the room waited and waited. After a long time, there was no movement from the voice transmission talisman. He could not bear it anymore. Finally, he gritted his teeth and pushed the door open. "Why didn't you reply to my voice transmission talisman?" a certain honored warrior asked in a bad mood. Yoon Chujie opened her eyes and glanced at him. "I should be the one asking you this question, right? I sent you 6 or 7 voice transmission talismans. Why didn't you reply to me?" A certain Jio choked and then said righteously, "This matter was originally your fault. Why should I reply to you?" Yoon Chujie sneered. "I did something wrong? Then do you think I should have foolishly admitted that I was Yoon Chujie and then waited for someone to kill me and throw me into the sea to feed the bastard? Could it be that your mood is more important than my life and death?" A certain Jio's imposing manner was instantly dispirited by her rebuke. She sat at the head of the bed angrily and did not say a word. Seeing this, Yoon Chujie continued, "I admit that I was indeed in the wrong. I should have told you tactfully. If I were to suddenly hear you say wife and wife, I would also be very angry. However, I have already explained it to you clearly. You shouldn't have been so angry. Do you know how worried I am that you would run away from home without replying to my voice transmission talisman? Think about it. If I ran away from home without replying to your voice transmission talisman, how would you feel? Most importantly, don't we even have this little bit of trust? If you think that I'm a fickle person, I have nothing to say. You can go." Yoon Chujie's eyes turned red and tears fell from her eyes. Certain Jio was not afraid of anything. She was only afraid that her daughter-in-law would cry. She stammered, "I didn't say anything. Aren't I back now?" SOB, I knew it. You don't believe me. In your heart, I'm like a butterfly who loves a flower. Sob, my heart is about to break. A certain Jio became more and more sad as she spoke. She picked up the pillow on the bed and threw it at Biming. A certain Jio did not have any temper after being hit. Seeing that Yoon Chujie was getting more and more sad as she cried, she was so anxious that her forehead was sweating. She said loudly, "No Ben, I didn't mean that. You don't cry. Can't you just consider me wrong?" "What do you mean you're wrong? You're wrong. You bastard, you wronged me and you even destroyed my courtyard. You made my heart turn cold." Sob, yes, it's all my fault. Don't cry." A certain someone felt that even if he was chased by the enemy, it was better than seeing his little wife cry. This was too torturous. SOB, will you run away from home in the future? Won't you reply to my voice transmission talisman in the future? Will you throw a tantrum in the future? I definitely won't. A certain Jio shook her head like a rattle drum. Alright then, I'll reluctantly forgive you. Help me get some water and help me wipe my face. A certain Jio was proud in her heart. Little fellow, I still can't teach you a lesson, Yutsundra. A certain Geo started to get busy in a muddle-headed manner. She helped a certain Geo wash her face and feet. In the end, she even sang a lullaby several times. Before a certain Geo fell asleep, a question flashed through his mind. He was here to interrogate him. Why did it turn into an apology in the end? The next day during breakfast, Yun Chujio told Di Biming what happened after that. Then she said, "Prince Charming, I have some new ideas about the Divine Devil Hall now. I think the Divine Devil Hall must have existed in the past. However, for some unknown reason, it fell and some survivors were suppressed in various places. The Lord must have been suppressed there too. In addition, the Divine Devil Hall. This name is really strange. How can gods and devils be combined together? Prince Charming, are there any clues about the Divine Devil Hall in the seal that you have broken?" Di Biming shook his head. "I have only broken 1/5 of the seal at most. I don't know much about many things. However, your guess should be correct. The Lord of the God-Fiend Temple must have been suppressed or sealed somewhere. Otherwise, he would have gone into battle personally. As for the name of the God-Fiend Temple, although there are some strange aspects, it doesn't mean anything. Could also be that they are deliberately mystifying things. Male God, I feel that the Yen race's invasion this time is definitely related to the Divine Devil Hall. Compared to the demon race, I hate the Yen race who are just a fence-sitter." Di Biming lightly snorted. "The Yen race is just a clown. In the future, you will encounter a race that is even more despicable and shameless than the Yen race. Little Geo, I might need to enter a secret realm to retrieve something very important. There, I won't be able to sense the jade token I gave you. So, don't leave the primordial chaos sect for the time being. Cultivate obediently. Do you hear me?" A certain Geo curled her lips and nodded. "Got it. Wasn't it just the 8-character maxim? Cultivate properly and don't cause trouble. Don't worry. You'll need to refine the lightning energy that I absorbed before. I won't leave the primordial chaos sect. Even if the 3 months are up, I'll still stay here and not leave." Di Biming rubbed Yun Chujia's little head and said seriously, "You must keep your word. Otherwise, I won't let you off after I come out." Yun Chujio shrunk her neck, looking like she was afraid of the baby. Actually, this fellow's mouth twitched in his heart. Won't let her off? Little fellow, it was still uncertain who would take care of who. You arrogant fellow. How could Di Biming know what this fellow was thinking? He nodded his head in satisfaction and said, "Although the Yen clan isn't worth mentioning, the humans have been at peace for too long. I reckon that this dispute won't be settled too quickly. Who knows, it might even affect the primordial chaos sect. You're just a handyman. When the time comes, don't rush to stand out, understand?" His forehead was full of bean-sized beads of sweat. He looked at Yun Chujio in confusion. What was going on? And Lin Chuan, that unlucky child, was thrown thousands of feet away. Moreover, he landed on his face first. This guy was completely in a state of confusion as to where he was, what he was doing, and who he was. Those law enforcement disciples watched as a black figure flew out of the courtyard. They thought that Yun Chujio had escaped from prison, so they hurriedly ran over to take a look. Only then did they realize that it was Lin Chuan. "Junior brother, and what are you doing?" The leader of the law enforcement disciples asked with a confused look. And Lin Chuan thought to himself, damn it, he also wanted to know what was going on. He was clearly talking in junior sister Little Gio's courtyard earlier, so why did he suddenly fly out? Did I encounter a ghost? This fellow got up and staggered to the entrance of Yun Chujio's courtyard again. Unfortunately, before he could call for the door, he flew out tragically again. Di Biming said indifferently, "This venerable self is a little tired. You guys can go back." "Okay, great God, we will go back now." "Okay, great God, you should rest early." Then the two idiots quickly left. Yun Chujio, "Prince Charming, may I ask how it feels to have 2 brainless fans?" a certain Gio asked sourly. Although Di Biming had never heard of brainless fans, he roughly understood what Yun Chujio wanted to express. He said lightly, "I have no feelings, no other feelings. I'm used to it." Yun Chujio, "Can't you just pretend to be dead?" Early the next morning, and Linchuan and Shangguan Hao came to court them. Yun Chujiu looked at the breakfast on the table and her eyes twitched. There were dozens of porridge, hundreds of pasta dishes and various side dishes. Damn it, she was struck by lightning. After breakfast, the two of them served tea and water and asked some questions about cultivation. Di Baiming was in a good mood and answered their questions patiently. And Linchuan and Shangguan Hao were enlightened. They looked at Di Baiming with even more admiration. They almost knelt down and worshipped him. Yun Chujiu looked at the three of them who were chatting happily. She felt sour in her heart. Damn it, why did she feel like her man was stolen? A certain Jiu became more and more annoyed the more she looked at the two brainless fans. In the end, she picked up a large kitchen knife and chased them out. A certain Jiu's eyes flashed with a faint light. So little Jiu was so cute when she was jealous. Should she design something like this in the future? Therefore, when Linchuan and Shangguan Hao came again in the afternoon, a certain Jiu's explanation became even more patient. A certain Jiu was so angry that she was twitching. Not only did she have to guard against little bitches, but now she even had to guard against men. Was she being kind? A certain Jiu might have had a sense of crisis. At night, she acted coquettishly and cutely towards a certain Jiu. A certain Jiu had a thought before she went to bed. This method was not bad. Those two pieces of trash still had some uses. The poor two brainless fans thought that their solicitude had earned the attention of the god, who knew that they were just tools for a certain Jiu to cling on to her. Di Baiming wanted to stay a few more days, but he received Xue Wuji's voice transmission talisman the next day, so he had to leave in a hurry. When Linchuan and Shangguan Hao found out that Di Baiming had left, they looked like eggplants that had been hit by frost, as if they had nothing to live for. He Xinjiu couldn't hold it in anymore and asked, Senior brother Shangguan, I don't understand. Isn't the pretty boy just a little more spiritual power and a little more angry? Do you have to be like this? What? Gigolo? Junior sister Jiu, you have gone too far. How dare you slander the god in our hearts? Shut up. And Linchuan said angrily. Although Shangguan Hao did not say anything, his eyes were full of disapproval. If eyes could kill, Yun Chujiu felt that she had most likely become a sieve. Yun Chujiu's heart was like a beeping dog as she said weakly, I just misspoke. So, can you give me an answer now? And Linchuan did not answer Yun Chujiu's question. Instead he said angrily, Echi. Even if it was just a slip of the tongue, it won't do. Although you are my blood junior sister, if you ever disrespect the great god again in the future, senior brother won't agree. Yun Chujiu felt that her brain was not enough. Fuck, could it be that these two guys had been drugged by the gigolo? Just as Yun Chujiu was cursing in her heart, she heard Linchuan continue, in the immortal Yuan continent, the strong are respected. A strand of the great god's spiritual sense instantly killed hundreds of people from the divine devil hall. What kind of godly power is this? Even Master Bailey couldn't do it, let alone that it was just a strand of the great god's spiritual sense. Thinking about how I was slapped away by the great god 5 times, I felt my heart surge. After I went back, I kept that set of sect clothes. This is my first intimate contact with the great god. A certain Jiu's eyes twitched violently. She really wanted to vomit. And Linchuan continued to express his admiration for a certain god. Shangguan Hao, who was beside him, also showed an expression of worship. Ahem, okay, I know how much you admire our young and our Prince Charming. But now that he has left, can we play landlord for a while? And Linchuan said with a resentful tone, Junior sister little Jiu, the Almighty once said that he wanted us to cultivate properly. How can you waste your time? Hurry up and go cultivate. Well, help the Almighty keep an eye on you. That's right, junior sister little Jiu. Although you're very smart, your spiritual power is still too weak. Don't be playful in the future. Hurry up and cultivate. Don't disappoint the Almighty's expectations of you. A certain Jiu, heavens. No wonder the pretty boy did not repeat the 8-character mantra several times when he left this time. It turned out that he had arranged some brainless fans to keep an eye on her. How ruthless. From that day onwards, Linchuan and Shangguan Hao took turns to keep an eye on a certain Jiu's cultivation. As a result, the disciples of the law enforcement department were so touched that they could not help but be touched. They felt that Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao had been keeping an eye on Yun Chujio in Yun Chujia's courtyard for the sake of the stability and unity of the primordial chaos sect and for the long-term peace and stability of the primordial chaos sect. As expected of a true disciple. They really had the ability to see the big picture and the spirit of dedication. For several days in a row, Yun Chujio had been obediently cultivating in the courtyard. Everyone in the primordial chaos sect felt that things had suddenly calmed down a lot. Especially the law enforcement department, they felt that they were so bored that they were almost moldy. On this day the peaceful life had been broken. The Alliance army that was battling with the Nightmare Clan in the far west had fallen into the Nightmare Clan's scheme, resulting in a crushing defeat and heavy casualties. Many experts sent by the super aristocratic families blew up their dantian and all died in battle. Many experts of the Sky-Bearing Alliance blew up their dantian and all died in battle. Many elders sent by the Killing Origin sect blew up their dantian and all died in battle. Many elders sent by the Chaos Origin sect blew up their dantian and all died in battle. It was precisely because of these people's self-sacrifice that temporarily prevented the Yen clan from crossing the final barrier of the human race. Otherwise, once the Yen clan crossed the final barrier of the human race, they would scatter all over the Immortal Origin continent. At that time it would be even more difficult to catch them all in one fell swoop. When the news arrived, the entire Immortal Essence continent was plunged into grief, indignation and fear. Yun Chujio did not have much of a feeling before, but after hearing Lin Chuan's words, she suddenly realized that the threat of the nightmare race was already so great. She recalled what Di Baiming had said. The human race had been at ease for too long, and the nightmare race had been preparing for a counterattack. The human race would definitely suffer a heavy blow. Yun Chujio was actually a very contradictory person. Call her selfish, but she would stand up in many critical moments. However, there were many times when she was afraid of death and would secretly hide behind to pick up scraps. In fact, one of the criteria for this fellow to do things was to depend on his mood, while the other was to protect his own shortcomings. If Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao had not gone to the far west to face the enemy, this fellow would have been able to hide in the primordial chaos sect in peace. However, now that he saw that the two of them were going to the battlefield, this fellow could not hide anymore. Thus, this fellow eagerly went to Master Bailey and requested to participate in the battle in the far west. Master Bailey flatly rejected her request. Although Master Bailey usually had a headache because of a certain Jio's troublemaking, if he did not value Yun Chujio he could find a reason to expel her from the primordial chaos sect. How could he allow her to do as she pleased? Yun Chujio put in a bunch of good words, but Master Bailey did not agree in the end. Hei Xinjiu could only return to her dormitory with her head lowered. 3 days later, the elders and disciples of the primordial chaos sect headed to the far west region. Unlike the previous trials, everyone's faces were filled with grief and indignation. Some were sad about the sacrifices they had made, and some were terrified about the unknown road ahead. A certain Jiao in the crowd shook her head. This aura was not right at first. With such a spirit, going to the battlefield would be suicide. No, she had to think of a way to go with them. She could not watch her good friend die. Moreover, the others were all old acquaintances such as Mountain Master Zhuo, Elder Jing and Elder Yuan. She could not remain indifferent. However, Master Bailey had flatly rejected her request. If she wanted to follow him she could only go secretly. This fellow counted with his fingers. It happened to be the 3rd month, so this fellow had an idea. 2 days after Lin Chuan and the others set off, Hei Xinjiu found Master Bailey and proposed to go to the Yuan killing sect. Master Bailey was in a terrible situation. He felt that it would be good to send this fellow to the Yuan killing sect. Therefore, Master Bailey sent Master Xiaohou a voice transmission talisman and asked him to send someone to pick up Yun Chujio. Master Xiaohou was also in a terrible situation. Clap clap. Clap clap. Yun Chujio clapped her hands a few times. Senior Brother Ling, what you said was really wonderful. Since you are so righteous, then let me ask you, why didn't you go to the front line? This is the pot calling the kettle black. What right do you have to criticize me? Leng Kuei was almost suffocated by the rebuke. You are twisting logic. I am a disciple of the Shi Yuan sect, so I naturally have to listen to the sect's arrangements. If the sect agrees to let me go to the front line, I will definitely not refuse. Humph. That's a nice way of putting it. You still listen to the sect's arrangements. I think you are just cowardly. Has the sect tied your legs or tied your waist? If you have the intention, you can definitely rush to the far west right now. Pui. You are just a coward who plays with your mouth. Coward. Coward. Yun Chujio cursed with her hands on her waist. How could Leng Kuei endure this? He originally wanted to go to the far west, but it was Master Xiaohou who forced him to stay in the origin-killing sect. Now that he was provoked by Yun Chujio, he immediately felt hot-blooded. He gnashed his teeth and said, Good. Good. Get down there and go to the origin-killing sect on your own. I will adjust the direction of the flying spirit tool now and rush to the far west to participate in the battle. Tee, who knows if you are hiding in a corner? I will go with you. I want to see if you are fooling me. Yun Chujio said with a cold smile. Leng Kuei was so angry that he was twitching. Good. Good. Don't regret it when the time comes. Leng Kuei immediately changed the direction of the flying spirit tool and went straight to the far west. Yun Chujio was overjoyed. Done. Not only did she successfully escape from the Hunyuan sect, but she also kidnapped a free follower. It was simply perfect. Soon 3 days passed. After Leng Kuei calmed down, he realized that he had been goaded by Yun Chujio. The reason why Leng Kuei thought so was that a certain Jio's leisurely expression did not look like she was supervising him at all. Instead, she looked like a petty person who had gotten what she wanted. Yun Chujio, did you plan to use me to go to the far west from the beginning? Leng Kuei asked angrily. You figured it out in only 3 days. Aren't you too stupid? Yun Chujio said with a smile while chewing on the spirit fruit. You are despicable. Despicable? How am I despicable? Did I force you with a knife or whip you? Besides, didn't you want to go to the far west? We hit it off. Leng Kuei was rendered speechless. He couldn't say that he was impulsive before, but now he regretted it. It wasn't that he was afraid of death, but that he had disobeyed Master Xiaohu's orders and would be punished by the sect rules in the future. Master Xiaohu was probably too busy to think straight, so he had not summoned Leng Kuei for the past few days. He still did not know that his disciple had been abducted by Calamity 9 to the far west. Leng Kuei glared fiercely at Yun Chujio, then he said, Why do you have to go to the far west? You are not thinking of harming the allied army, are you? I'm warning you. It's fine if it's just a small matter, but now is the moment of life and death for the Immortal Essence continent. If you continue to cause trouble, it'll kill you first. Yun Chujio glanced at Leng Kuei as if she was looking at an idiot. Senior brother Leng Kuei, is there something wrong with your brain? I'm not stupid. Why would I harm the allied forces? If I want to harm them, it'll harm the nightmare race, all right? Humph. That's easy for you to say. Harm the nightmare race. You piece of trash, you'll die in less than 2 days in the far west region. If I were you, I'd take a flying spirit tool and return to the primordial chaos sect right now to avoid harming others and myself, Leng Kuei said disdainfully. With more people they could take care of each other. Moreover, everyone's goal was the same. They all wanted to fight against the Yen clan. Therefore, Leng Kuei said coldly, it's possible to join them, but from now on, you should try to speak less and not cause more trouble. Yun Chujio nodded obediently. Senior brother Leng Kuei, don't worry. From now on I will listen to you. Seeing that Yun Chujio was so obedient, Leng Kuei's expression eased up a little. Although he could be considered to have been kidnapped, his original intention was to contribute to the fight against the Yen clan. He could be considered to have asked for mercy. Therefore, the two of them found the registration point of the Freelance Martial Artist Alliance and prepared to register. The registration procedure was very simple. It was nothing more than a description of the name and spiritual power level, and then they would be assigned to the corresponding team in the Freelance Martial Artist Alliance. The Freelance Martial Artist Alliance was divided into 3 teams according to the level of spiritual power. The team with the highest spiritual power was the first team, followed by the second team, and the team with the lowest spiritual power was the third team. Leng Kuei was at the 8th level of the spiritual void tier and was assigned to the second team. As for a certain Jiu, she was rejected because she was only at the 6th level of the spiritual void tier. Miss, Although it's good that you have the intention to contribute to the immortal essence continent, this person has to do what he can. Your spiritual power is too low. It's better for you to leave Mingsha City as soon as possible, said a middle-aged man in charge of the registration. Leng Kuei felt that he had vented his anger. He deserved it. Let's see how this bad news bag is going to show off. Yun Chujie regretted it. If she had known that there was a requirement for spiritual power, she would have secretly adjusted the spiritual power level to the first level of the spiritual void tier. She rolled her eyes and said, "Uncle, although my spiritual power is not high, I have a specialty. I can cook with fire. People are made of iron and rice are made of steel. In this war, the logistics work is also very important. Please take me as a cook's army." The middle-aged man from the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance hesitated for a moment. Although cultivators always brought dry food with them, it would still be good if they could eat warm food. So he said, "Well, in that case, I'll take you in. Later, I'll arrange a few people with low spiritual power to form a cook's army with you. You guys go and buy some cooking utensils and ingredients. When the time comes, I'll leave the cooking to you." Leng Kuei, who was standing at the side, twitched the corner of his mouth. How could this work? However, this guy was a fire-burning girl in the Chaos Origin sect and a fire-burning girl in the Murder Origin sect. He did not expect that he was still a fire-burning girl now. She and the fire-burning girl were really fated. Just when Leng Kuei was cursing in his heart, he heard Yun Chujie say with a smile, "There's no need to find someone else. My brother and I can do it alone." Leng Kuei did not realize that the brother that Yun Chujie was talking about was him. When the middle-aged man changed the jade plate in his hand to the cook's army Leng Kuei, he almost lost his breath. He Xinjiu also got a jade plate with the words, "Cook's army Leng Xiaojiu" written on it. This guy dragged the livid Leng Kuei along with the spiritual stones that the middle-aged man had transferred to him and bought pots, pans and many other ingredients on the street. Leng Kuei's face turned ashen as he said, "Yun Chujie, what do you mean? If you're willing to be the cook's army, you can be it yourself. Why did you drag me along?" "Brother, I'm called Leng Xiaojiu now. Don't call me that. We're brother and sister. Of course we have to be together. Besides, what's wrong with being the cook's army? Everyone in the Loose Cultivator Alliance has to leave us alone. If anyone offends me, I'll put laxatives in their food." Leng Kuei. He really wanted to strangle this guy to death? This scourge was just messing around here. Although Leng Kuei was unhappy, it was already a fact, so he could only swallow his anger. 2 days later, the Unaffiliated Cultivator Alliance recruited thousands of people and sailed into the far west Sand Sea. Yun Chujie suddenly thought of an important question. Fuck, there were only 2 of her and Leng Kuei. How could they take care of so many people's food? It was already good enough to take care of the food for 100 people. Fortunately, the middle-aged man Feng Ji found her and said, "Leng Xiaojiu, you and your sister are only in charge of the food for the first team. I have arranged for the rest of the food for the other 2 teams." The reason why Feng Ji arranged it this way was that the people in the first team were all itinerant cultivators with high spiritual power. They were very arrogant. He felt that Yun Chujie was smart and should be able to handle it, so he let her and Leng Kuei be in charge of the food in the first team. Although Yun Chujie's cooking skills were not that good, her mouth was sweet. Moreover, those itinerant cultivators did not pay much attention to the desire of their stomachs. As long as they could have a warm mouth, it was enough. Therefore, they managed to handle it smoothly for 2 days. As they went deeper into the Sand Sea, the environment became more and more terrible. During the day, it was as hot as a stove, but at night, it was bone-chilling. Although these itinerant cultivators were all cultivators, they still complained endlessly. A certain Jio was the only one who was fine. She was still alive and kicking like a happy rabbit. Since Yun Chujie and Leng Kuei were the cook's army of the first team, they followed behind the first team and naturally enjoyed a lot of benefits. For example, when they encountered demonic beasts or demonic insects, the spirit energy of the first team's itinerant cultivators was the highest and they could end the battle very quickly. Moreover, Yun Chujie and Leng Kuei didn't need to do anything. The 2 of them could just wait at the back. Moreover, although these itinerant cultivators didn't have a sect, the fact that they could cultivate to such a high level of spiritual power meant that they had their own outstanding points and were quite wealthy. Therefore they would occasionally give Yun Chujio and Leng Kuei some rewards, such as elixirs and spirit fruits. As the successor disciple of Master Xiahou, Leng Kuei naturally didn't like these things. However, in order to avoid causing trouble, he still thanked them and accepted them. As for Hei Xinjiu, she never complained that she had too much money, so she naturally accepted them with a smile. This way someone's red-eye disease would be triggered. Especially the cooks from the other two teams, they were also cooks, so how could Leng Kuei and his sister cook for the first team? They had to cook for the second and third teams? Also, some people from the third team felt that Yun Chujio and Leng Kuei had a relationship, so they went to cook for the first team. How despicable. Thus there were many gossips. That Leng Kuei is still passable. Although she can't reach the spirit power standard of the first team, she can still meet the spirit power standard of the second team. However, that Ling Xiaojiu is only at the 6th level of the Ling Xian realm. What right does she have to be the vanguard of the first team? That's right. I think she didn't go to resist the Yen clan at all. She must have some ulterior motives. Maybe she wants to find a senior with high spirit power to be her disciple. Pui. She didn't even look at herself in the mirror. Although she's good-looking, her aptitude is so poor. Who would take her in as a disciple? It's more like taking her in as a concubine. When Leng Kuei heard these rumors, he wanted to find someone to fight. Although he looked down on Yun Chujio, no matter what, Yun Chujio was still considered half a member of the Shiyuan sect. He naturally couldn't just sit by and do nothing. Unexpectedly, Yun Chujio stopped him. Those who are clear. There's no need to waste your breath on them. There's no need. Leng Kuei was really a little surprised. He thought that with this troublemaker's character she would definitely cause a big scene. He did not expect her to be so calm. Just because Yun Chujio wanted to calm things down did not mean that some people would be tactful. Just as Yun Chujio and Leng Kuei were preparing dinner, two people came over to find trouble with them with unpleasant expressions. Tieske, is this food for humans? How dare you call yourselves the Cook's Army? One of the men with a garlic nose said. San Jiuyan, who was standing beside him, sneered and then echoed, "That's right. If you know your place, then switch with us. Go and cook for the third team." The voices of the two people were very loud and soon attracted a crowd of people. Among them, there were some who wanted to see Yun Chujio make a fool of herself. They hugged their shoulders and came over to watch the show. Leng Kuei's face was gloomy. Just as he was about to argue with the two of them, Yun Chujio laughed lightly. "The food we cook is not for humans. The seniors of the first team have been eating for a few days. Could it be that they are not humans? Also, if you want to trade with us and let us cook for the third team, then aren't the people in the third team humans?" Garlic choked and said in a flustered and exasperated manner, "You stinky girl, you're so eloquent. Let me tell you, you have to change today even if you don't want to." At this moment, Feng Ji heard the commotion and rushed over. These unaffiliated cultivators were used to being free and undisciplined. Even though they had elected the so-called alliance leader, steward, and the others, they were not particularly obedient. Their thoughts were very simple. If worst came to worst, they could just go back. It was not like they had to go fight against the Nightmare Clan. Moreover, Feng Ji was only a middle-level steward in the unaffiliated cultivator alliance. Therefore, even when they saw him coming over, the Garlic Nose and San Jiayan were not afraid. Instead, they raised their voices. "Manager Feng, you came at the right time. Look at the food made by Ling Xiaojiu. Isn't this too bad?" So we applied to switch with them. We will cook for the seniors of the first team and they will cook for the people of the third team. Feng Ji was a kinder person. Otherwise he would not have accepted Yun Chujio as a cook. He gently advised, "Both of you, this was assigned before we set off. It's not good to make any changes. Let's forget it." When Garlic Nose saw that Feng Ji was so easy to talk to, his voice became even louder. "Manager Feng, what you said is wrong. Things are dead, people are alive. Since they did not do well, why should they stay in the first team? We joined the Loose Cultivator Alliance to fight against the Nightmare Clan, not to be bullied. You're clearly favoring them. Could it be that you've accepted their benefits?" Hearing the Garlic Nose's words, the surroundings immediately erupted into a clamor. The people in the first team only watched coldly from the side. No one came out to speak. They thought highly of themselves and naturally did not want to get involved in these miscellaneous matters. The alliance leader and the other stewards of the alliance of itinerant cultivators also did not stand out. They were not willing to incur the displeasure of everyone over such a small matter. Yun Chujio laughed coldly in her heart. These loose cultivators were the typical unorganized and undisciplined people. They were just a pile of loose sand, yet they still wanted to help the Alliance army fight against the Nightmare Clan? It would be good if they did not cause any trouble. Feng Zhi persuaded them nicely for a while more, but not only did the Garlic Nose and San Jiaoyan not restrain themselves. Instead they became even more brazen. Leng Kuei, Ling Xiaojiu, bring your things and scram to the third team right now. Otherwise don't blame us for not being polite. Yun Chujio observed for a while and realized that she couldn't count on anyone in the unaffiliated Cultivator Alliance. It was better to use fists. So, she smiled at Leng Kuei. Brother, we haven't done anything for a long time. Since they came to us, there's no need for us to be polite. Well, beat them up. I'll cheer for you from the back. Leng Kuei, are you ordering this silly boy around? However, he was already furious and gave a slap to San Jiaoyan's nose. Although Leng Kuei was angry, he knew his limits. Therefore he did not use his spiritual power to attack. Even so, his spiritual power was much higher than San Jiaoyan's and San Jiaoyan's. Otherwise, the two of them would not have been assigned to be the cook's army. Leng Kuei did not spend much effort to beat San Jiaoyan and San Jiaoyan to the ground. He Xinjiu immediately went over and kicked them. Bah! You are a trash who overestimated yourself. Get lost, we are going to cook. San Jiaoyan and San Jiaoyan got up and ran away amidst the laughter of the crowd, but their eyes were full of viciousness. An hour later, Yun Chujio and Leng Kuei had just handed out the dinner when they saw a group of people rushing over aggressively. San Jiaoyan and the Garlic Nose led the way, their faces full of arrogance. Brat! Do you think that beating us up will be in vain? Kneel down immediately and apologize to us, brothers. Also, give up the position of the first group of cooks. Otherwise, I won't let you off today. She felt that she was simply too wise. If it was just her and Leng Kuei, they would have to shed a layer of skin if they wanted to pass through the extreme West Sand Sea. It would be much easier with these freelance martial artists' alliance. The wind and sand blew so hard that people couldn't open their eyes. Suddenly, a huge pincer blue scorpion continuously drilled out from the sand under their feet. The pincer blue scorpion was a level 44 demonic beast, which was equivalent to a human's third layer of spiritual space. Its body was about 3 feet long. 2 huge pincers were nothing. The worst thing was that it raised the poisonous needle at its tail high. Once it was pierced, if they didn't take the antidote within 15 minutes, they would definitely die. The worst part was that they didn't know if their luck was too bad, but they just happened to meet the iron pincer blue scorpion's nest. There was an endless stream of iron pincer blue scorpions crawling out from under the sand. The cultivators of the first team could still barely deal with it, but the cultivators of the second and third teams were in a terrible situation. Screams of pain could be heard continuously. The scene immediately became chaotic. Yun Chujio curled her lips. Several thousand people couldn't even deal with more than 100 scorpions. With such combat strength, how could they deal with the Yen clan? While Yun Chujio was watching coldly from the side, San Jiaoyan and Garlic Nose happened to be right behind her. The two of them looked at each other and actually launched spiritual power attacks at Yun Chujio at the same time. Yun Chujio's actual spiritual power was already at the 7th level of the spiritual void tier, and she was about to break through again, so she easily noticed the small movements of the two of them. Yun Chujio's figure flashed and she dodged the two's attacks like a ghost. She also flashed behind the two, and one of her kicks landed directly in front of an iron pincer blue scorpion. Of course, the iron pincer blue scorpion would not let go of its prey. In the blink of an eye, the Garlic Nose and San Jiaoyan lost their lives. Leng Kuei, who was beside Yun Chujio, also noticed San Jiaoyan and the Garlic Nose's movements. He did not expect that Yun Chujio had already taken care of the two before he had the time to make a move. He was shocked. This troublemaker was even faster than him. How was this possible? Yun Chujio did not make a move after taking care of San Jiaoyan and San Jiaoyan. She only found a safe place to stand. Although she had hidden her strength, her actual spiritual power was not as high as the cultivators in the first team. It was better to not cause more trouble. Leng Kuei stood beside Yun Chujio and did not make a move. His mission was to protect himself and Yun Chujio's safety. As for others, he was not interested. Yun Chujio muttered in her heart. This was the difference between the disciples of the murderous origin sect and the mixed origin sect. If Enlinchuan and Shangguan Hao knew that their spiritual power was no match, they would definitely help. However, these itinerant cultivators each had their own thoughts, so it was better to watch from the sidelines. After the initial panic, the alliance leader of the itinerant cultivator alliance, Zhao Zijing, finally took control of the situation. He asked the cultivators of the first team to block the attack of the iron pincers and blue scorpions, and covered the second and third teams to quickly pass through this area. When everyone finally escaped, the sky was already dark. Everyone sat on the ground and panted heavily. Yun Chujio and Leng Kuei quickly buried the pot to cook. When the two of them were busy, they did not expect that someone would complain to Zhao Zijing for them. After dinner, Yun Chujio was brought to Zhao Zijing. Leng Kuei obviously could not stand by and watch, so he also followed. As soon as Yun Chujio arrived, she knew that this matter wouldn't end well. Not only was Zhao Zijing present, but the leader of the unaffiliated cultivator alliance was also present, and there were many onlookers. Leng Xiaojiu, someone reported that you secretly harmed Lin Gang and Zhao Chong. What do you have to say? Zhao Zijing said with a gloomy face. Zhao Zijing was a thoughtful person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spent so much effort to become the leader of the unaffiliated cultivator alliance. However, he also knew that everyone was only treating him as a matter of face. They were not convinced by him in their hearts. He felt that after the incident with the iron pincers and blue scorpion, his prestige should have increased. Just as he was about to take another step forward, someone reported that Yun Chujio had secretly harmed San Jiaoyan and the garlic nose. He felt that this was a great opportunity to establish his prestige and win over the hearts of the people. Therefore, he prepared to make an attack on Yun Chujio. I have nothing to say because I didn't harm them at all, Yun Chujio said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Zhao Zijing snorted coldly. How stubborn. Lu Zhuang, come over and tell me what happened. A bearded man walked out from the crowd and said through gritted teeth, Alliance leader, I saw it with my own eyes. This Leng Xiaojiu kicked Lin Gang and Zhao Chong to the front of the steel pincer blue scorpion. They lost their lives just like that. President, we came here to fight against the nightmare race and for the safety of the immortal essence continent. Leng Xiaojiu killed Lin Gang and Zhao Chong for a personal grudge. It's an unforgivable crime. Please help them. When this person was much higher than them and they could not look up to him, they were not jealous because they no longer had the courage to be jealous. Leng Kuei snorted coldly. What you guys said is really nice. I didn't see you guys use any talismans or spiritual weapons against the enemy. My sister is only at the 6th layer of the Lingxian realm. What's wrong with keeping talismans to protect her life? Those people were embarrassed by Leng Kuei's words. However, since they had already fallen out with each other, it was impossible for them to give up halfway. Therefore, they thickened their skin and ignored Leng Kuei's words. They continued to make a racket to force Zhao Zijing to kick Yun Chujio and Leng Kuei out of the team. The people from the first and second teams still didn't say anything. Instead, Feng Zhi came out to plead for mercy. Alliance leader, Leng Xiaojiu kept the talismans to protect her life because her spiritual power is low. This extreme West Sand Sea is extremely dangerous. If we chase them out, I'm afraid that they will be doomed. Please think twice. Zhao Zijing pondered for a moment, and then said with a troubled look, Manager Feng, the alliance of non-affiliates is not my decision. It depends on everyone's opinion. Everyone, the Leng siblings did not commit any unforgivable mistake. Leng Xiaojia's spiritual power is low, so it's inevitable that she is timid. It makes sense that she did not participate in the battle. Let's forget about this matter. Feng Zhi said to the bearded man and the others. The bearded man snorted coldly. Steward Feng, you arranged the good jobs for the Leng siblings, and now you're speaking up for them. Could it be that you've really accepted their benefits? The people around them also jeered. That's right. So we elected you as the steward because you're honest and honest. I didn't expect you to pull such a trick behind our backs. We apply for the dismissal of him. Right, dismiss him. Well, choose another manager. Since this Feng Ji is helping Ling Xiaojiu so much, well, expel him together. Feng Ji never expected that he would be ostracized just because he was pleading for leniency in the Freelance Martial Artist Alliance. Apart from shock, there was also a hint of grief and indignation on his face. Feng Ji looked at Zhao Zijing hoping that he would say something fair. However, he didn't expect Zhao Zijing to remain silent. Zhao Zijing had long been dissatisfied with Feng Ji, who always did things by the book. Moreover, Feng Ji was in charge of the public finances of the alliance, so Zhao Zijing, the alliance leader, couldn't take any advantage. Therefore, Zhao Zijing had long wanted to find a reason to kick Feng Ji out. Now was a great opportunity, so he naturally wouldn't let it go. Since Zhao Zijing did not speak, the bearded man and the others became even more noisy. Moreover, some of the people in the first team were eyeing Feng Ji's position covetously. They also added fuel to the fire. For a moment they were all shouting to expel Feng Ji. It was even louder than Yun Chujia's voice. Feng Ji's body was slightly trembling. Good. I Feng Ji have always been conscientious. I never had the slightest bit of selfishness. I did not expect to end up like this. Since you insist on this, I have nothing to say. You can choose one person. After I hand over the spirit stones to him, I will take the initiative to leave. There is no need for you to expel me. Hearing Feng Ji's words, Zhao Zijing sighed. Steward Feng, after you have finished handing over the spirit stones, there is no need for you to leave the Loose Cultivator Alliance. I will naturally protect you. Although Feng Ji was honest, it did not mean that he was a fool. He smiled bitterly. There is no need. I still won't be an eyesore. Regarding Feng Ji's matter, only a few people showed a pained expression. Most of them were numb, while a few others showed a happy expression. He didn't expect her mind to be so clear. Yes, he was still thinking too simply. How could those people from the Loose Cultivator Alliance just expel them? They would definitely use the demonic beast to kill them. The more Feng Ji thought about it, the more he felt that what Yun Chujio said made sense. Fine beads of sweat started to drip out from his forehead. He sighed. The human heart is even scarier than the demonic beasts. Alright, let's walk in front of them. I would rather be eaten by the demonic beasts than be killed by my original companions. Leng Kuei did not say anything at the side. His heart felt like it was turning upside down. Even though he was a disciple of the murderous origin sect, everything had been smooth sailing for him. Moreover, the disciples of the murderous origin sect had always flattered him. He did not know that people's hearts were so complicated. At this moment, Leng Kuei seemed to have some understanding and relief towards Yun Chujia's evil schemes. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. When the people of the Unaffiliated Cultivator Alliance saw that Yun Chujio and the other two had actually walked in front of them, all of them sneered. These three people were really brainless. If they had followed behind the Unaffiliated Cultivator Alliance, they would have suffered less. After all, they could eliminate most of the demonic beasts in front and even scare them away. However, now that they were walking in front, they were just waiting to be fed to the demonic beasts. Zhao Zijing's eyes flickered a few times. He originally wanted to find an opportunity to get rid of these three people, but he didn't expect that they would seek their own death and walk in front of the Loose Cultivator Alliance. That would save them a lot of trouble. Yun Chujio and the other two walked for a while and found a sand dune. The three of them decided to camp here at night. Brother, Uncle Feng, your spiritual power is higher than mine, so I'll leave the night shift to you. Im Young. If I don't sleep well, it will affect my growth, He Xinjiu said with a smile. Feng Ji, Leng Kuei. Although the lifespan of cultivators on the Immortal Essence continent was at least a few hundred years, at most a few thousand years, Yun Chujio was a real little girl on the Immortal Essence continent. However, it was a bit shameless to say that it would affect their growth. The corners of Feng Ji and Leng Kuei's eyes twitched, but they didn't say anything. They didn't want a little girl like her to be on night shift. They thought that the night wouldn't be peaceful. They didn't expect nothing to happen. A certain Jiao stretched her body and walked out of the universal tent when the sky was bright. Uncle Feng, brother, come and have breakfast. A certain Jiao took out a small square table and placed a sumptuous breakfast on it. Fengji was stunned. These things were much better than what they usually ate. It was probably bought by the little girl herself. As for why she hadn't taken it out before, it was probably because she was afraid of arousing the envy of others. How could he know that a certain Jiu actually felt that since there was free food from the Freelance Martial Artist Alliance, why would she waste her own things? After the three of them finished their breakfast, they continued to walk forward. At noon, it was the hottest time in the extreme West Desert Sea. Fengji and Leng Kuei kept drinking water to wipe their sweat. A certain Jiu was the only one jumping around in front, feeling very uncomfortable. Fengji clicked his tongue in wonder. This little girl's physique was really special. She was actually so resistant to heat. While Yun Chujie was jumping around happily, she noticed several pairs of deep blue eyes flickering with a cold light in the distance, and they were constantly approaching. Yun Chujie's heart jumped. It must be the 43rd level Sand Sea Blood Wolf. The Sand Sea Blood Wolf was different from other demon wolves. They didn't like to move at night. Instead, they liked to hunt at noon when it was the hottest time. This was because the sun was exploding. The prey's body lacked water and their movements were slow. It was the weakest time for them to hunt successfully. Fengji also noticed these Sand Sea Blood Wolves. His heart immediately sank. It's the Sand Sea Blood Wolves. And there are at least dozens of them in this group. Let's run quickly. Uncle Feng, where can we run to? If we run to the left and right, how can we escape these Sand Sea Blood Wolves? If we turn around and run, those people from the Loose Cultivator Alliance will definitely say that we don't have good intentions. At that time they will directly kill us. Although Yun Chujie said that there was no way out, the expression on her face was not the same at all. Instead, it was as if she was talking about what to eat today. Fengji was anxious and did not pay attention to this. He followed Yun Chujie's words and said, "You are right. What should we do? Should we just wait for death here?" Yun Chujie spread her hands. "That's all we can do. Anyway, we'll die sooner or later. Why are we wasting our energy running?" As he spoke, he sat on the ground and jumped up from the burning sand. "Oh my God, it's burning me to death." Leng Kuei and Fengji were speechless. At this time, this guy was still fooling around. However, what she said made sense. Since they couldn't escape anyway, they might as well stay still and fight for a chance of survival. While the two of them were thinking, they saw Yun Chujie take out a large piece of white cloth from her storage ring. Then she made 8 flags out of the white cloth and placed them around the three of them. It was like a formation. Leng Kuei and Fengji were baffled. What was wrong with this little girl? When the wolf pack comes later, don't talk. Leave it to me. Before Leng Kuei and Fengji could ask further, the wolf pack had already arrived in front of the three of them. Dozens of pairs of deep blue eyes stared at Yun Chujie and the other two. Saliva dripped from the corners of their mouths. However, there was hesitation in their eyes. What kind of formation was this? Normally, humans would turn around and run when they saw them. Why didn't these three humans run? Was this formation very powerful? Were they waiting for them to fall into their trap? Fengji and Leng Kuei's palms were sweaty. However, when they remembered what Yun Chujie said just now, they just stared at the wolf pack with vigilance and didn't say anything. Yun Chujie smiled and waved at the largest Sand Sea Blood Wolf. "Little dog, come, come." Fengji stumbled and almost sat on the ground. This little girl couldn't tell if she was a wolf or a dog, right? How was she a dog? Besides, are you stupid? Why did you let her come? Did she eat you? Leng Kuei knew that Yun Chujie was full of bad ideas, but he didn't understand what was in Yun Chujie's gourd. The two of them were confused, but the Wolf King was even more confused. Recently, humans often passed by its territory, but it had never encountered such a situation. This little girl must be planning something bad. She must have set a trap, and once it walked over, it would suffer. It was not a stupid wolf, it would not be fooled. Therefore, the Wolf King only roared a few times, but did not move half a step forward. When the other Sand Sea Blood Wolves saw that their leader did not dare to act rashly, they naturally did not dare to move either. For a moment, both sides were in a stalemate. Fengji and Leng Kuei felt that their brains were not enough. Were these Sand Sea Blood Wolves idiots? The little girl only said a few words with a smile, but they actually did not dare to move? How was this possible? "Little dog, I didn't expect you to be so smart. You are much smarter than the Iron Pincer Blue Scorpions we met before." But that's also true.